Good morning, everyone, and a warm welcome to those attending and also to our viewers watching live on the Council's YouTube channel, Hillingdon, London. This is a meeting of the licensing, and my name is Councillor Becky Hagger, and I am chairing this meeting today. Details of the business to be considered today are shown on the agenda, and copies of which are accessible for those members watching on YouTube underneath the broadcast. Please note that members of the committee will be using tablets and laptops to view the agenda today, so please do bear with us when you see us flicking up and down with our fingers. Fire alarm. We're not expecting a fire drill, so if the fire alarm does go off, please follow officers to fire exits and out of the building to the designated meeting points. Mobile devices. For those of you that have your mobile devices, can you please switch them off now or place them on silence? Declarations of interest. Councillors, if you have a declaration of interest to make in relation to today's agenda, please ensure that you state whether it's pecuniary or non-pecuniary and give the reason for your interest. Members need not declare an interest in any item on the agenda where they have already listed this on the registers of interest, and furthermore, you do not need to declare an interest just because you're the ward councillor or because you're a governor. Residents' feedback forms. For those watching via YouTube, if you are so minded, you can complete one of our residents' feedback forms. These can be found in the information section underneath the YouTube video. These forms are intended to help us improve the way that we run our meetings. Attendees. We'll now move on to the attendees, and we'd like to just introduce ourselves. As I said, I'm Chair, and I'll be chairing this Licence Committee meeting today. I'm Councillor Becky Hagger, and I'm going to go through from my right.
Gurnam Baines, Legal Advisor today.
Councillor Darren Davies, Vice Chairman of this committee.
Councillor Kuldeep Lakman, a member of the Licensing Committee.
Good morning, Police Constable Penny Brown from the Police Licensing Team based at Hillingdon.
PC Dave Butler, Metropolitan Police Licensing Team, London Borough of Hillingdon.
Daniel Ferrer, Licensing Team Manager, Hillingdon Council.
Jan Sweeting, Councillor for West Drayton Ward and Secretary of the Local Residents Association.
Morning, Chris Lucan from the Licensing Guys. This morning, appearing as advocate on behalf of the client.
Nick Semper from the Licensing Guys, and lastly,
Angelica Schuller, Applicant.
Mark Rose, Licensing Officer.
Anisha Tedji, Democratic Services.
Wonderful. A warm welcome, and a warm welcome to our members of the public sitting here today as well. Thank you for coming. Have we any apologies of absence?
No apologies, Chair.
Thank you. Have we any declarations of interest coming to the meeting? Thank you very much. Just to confirm that all items of business are actually marked in Part 1, so it will all be considered public. Matters that have been notified in advance are urgent. We don't have any of those, but we have had some added information that has come in this morning. It has come in very late. We have taken that into account. We have come together to decide whether we would be accepting that, and also we have to bear in mind that everyone has to have, so other parties also need to accept that information because it has come in. I think it came in about 9 o'clock this morning. We have all deliberated together and we have decided not to accept the information because it has come in very late. So I hope you will respect us for that. Councillor Sweeting.
Can I state that one of the pieces of information was already submitted to the Council as a complaint some days ago, and therefore there is a reference number to that, and therefore I believe that is relevant still.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeting. If there is a reference number and it's come through under our members' inquiries, then we will seek that out with the information when we ask a question to officers. So that will come through then.
Through you, Chair. Yes, the reference number is actually on the piece of information that I submitted.
So that will, as I said, that will come through officers when I question officers about the members' inquiries that we've received. So that should be evident on that. Is there any questions? No? Councillor Davies?
Just to say, Madam Chair, I wouldn't be happy reviewing it because I haven't had time to read the document and I have to fully understand what I'm reviewing here. So I wouldn't be looking at that myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I come in, please, just for a second?
You certainly may.
We certainly haven't had sight of it, and to be honest with you, I can't take instructions from my clients 5 minutes before the hearing. We'd asked for it to be excluded in accordance with the hearing regulations, please. Thank you.
So we take that into account and completely understand that. So we won't be accepting it, and that's the end. So I'm not going to go into any further discussions. We do have the power to accept it or not, and we have decided not to. So we will now move on. I would like, because we've got members of the public here, just bear with me, and I'll just go through how the proceedings are run, if that's okay, and then that gives everyone notice and really know the rules and regulations about today. So we start off with our regulatory services, our licensing officer, and here give us a little debrief summary. Then it goes on to the applicant, so then you will give a little debrief summary. Then responsible authorities, so we have a debrief from our responsible authorities, and then other parties. So that would be the councillor, that would be members of the public. We are allowed, the subcommittee are allowed to ask questions, but it's only the subcommittee. These questions are what we call closed questions. So when we ask a question, there must be one answer. It's not a discussion. It's a question about the information that's been provided in the report. So I think that's really important to remember. So it is sort of information that's been provided. It might be something that we need a little bit extra on. Once we've done that, then we're open for discussion. Discussion must always come through the chair. So if I can remind everyone, if you do need to say anything, please either put your hand up or just let me know, but it must come through me first, even in the discussions. That way we can have a very in-depth discussion. The idea here is to hear everything and hear everyone. So there are no time limits. But obviously at the same time, we don't want to have repeated information. We like new information. So if you do have new information, please do bring it forward. That's important. We've got it in there. But non-repeatal, it just doesn't really help us if you're repeating the same information again and again. So I hope that's made that clear. So with that, after the discussions, we will then have closing remarks. So each of the party has an opportunity to say their closing remarks. And then after that, you will all exit the room, and then we come in, just a subcommittee, for deliberation. So I hope that explains the procedure of order today. So with that, we're going to start with our regulatory officer, our licensing officer, Mark Rose. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, all. You will have all received the report and agenda and will be familiar with the application. This hearing relates to an application from the Mandala Restaurant and Lounge Limited, based at Carter House, Colin Mill Road, West Drayton, UB7 7AE, for a premises licence under the Licensing Act 2003. The application was submitted by an agent, Mr. Semper, from the licensing guys, on behalf of the Mandala Restaurant manager, Angelika Schiller, who is the designated premises supervisor. Their application related to the sale of alcohol for on sales, Monday to Thursday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m, and Friday to Sunday, 11 a.m. to 1 a.m. Late night refreshments on Friday, Saturday and Sunday, 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. Of note, the application details an extension to 2 a.m. on Valentine's Day, Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, bank holidays and Sundays before bank holidays for both alcohol and late night refreshment. The proposed opening hours being Monday to Thursday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m, and Friday to Sunday, 11 a.m. to 1 a.m. A brief timeline of events. The application was submitted on December the 1st, 2024. The application was processed and sent out for consultation on December 2nd. The last date for representations was set as December 29th. I attended the venue on December 19th and took a photo of the blue notice on display at the restaurant in full view of passers-by from the pavement. The application was advertised in the newspaper on December 11th in an issue of the Gazette. The premises does not currently have a premises licence. However, they applied for and were granted 4 temporary event notices, which are called TENs, in December for a maximum time of 21 days total. The dates for these temporary event notices were as follows: December the 5th to December 8th for the sale of alcohol and late night refreshment, December the 10th to the 15th for sale of alcohol and late night refreshments, December 17th to the 21st just for the sale of alcohol, and December 23rd to the 28th again just for the sale of alcohol. I have reached out to our enforcement teams and had confirmation that we received no complaints or call-outs for the restaurant during these temporary event notifications. During the consultation period, we received objections from the licensing authority, the Metropolitan Police, who are present today to elaborate on their concerns. In addition, we also received reps from interested parties, 1 MP, 3 ward councillors and over 30 local residents. We did not receive any objections from planning or the Fire and Rescue Authority for London. For confirmation, we have received 2 addendums with additional information that have been sent out by Democratic Services. I now invite the committee to determine this application, giving due consideration to the application and all submissions, both verbal and written. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions, councillors? No questions. Okay, I just do have one question. Could you just clarify 2 things? One, obviously the TENS was in and we had no recorded members' inquiries in place or anything from that TENS, so there was no complaints.
That's confirmed, nothing came in.
And also, just to clarify, I know in the report we did need extra clarity around the vertical drinking. Do we have any idea on what percentage it might be?
No, I couldn't confirm that. I'd have to direct that to the applicant.
That's fine. That's fine. Thank you very much. That's the end of my questions. Okay, now over to the applicant. Thank you very much.
I'll be speaking. My name's Nick, and we're from the licensing guys, and we're representing the applicant here today, being Mandala Restaurant and Lounge Limited, here in the person of Miss Angelika Sheila. Okay. Now, the premise is primarily food-led and focuses on food and fine dining, with the intention of selling alcohol to customers mostly during dining hours. The ground floor includes a bar waiting area and lounge area designed to provide a relaxing environment for customers. On the first floor, there is a restaurant where there is a seating capacity of 47 covers. Upon entering on the ground floor, there is a bar area with a bar itself and 3 small tables accommodating only 6 people. Adjacent to the bar area is a coffee section that can seat 20 persons. Additionally, there is a lounge area with 25 covers available for both dining and relaxation purposes. Now, Angelika is a responsible operator who has worked in hospitality for over 10 years and has been a manager for 7 of those. She has never come to the attention of any of the responsible authorities across the several settings she has run. She employs 6 staff at present, which will rise to 12 when they're up and fully running. She sold alcohol on site throughout most of December, as you've already heard, under those temporary event notices, entirely within the law, without issue and without coming to the adverse attention of any of the responsible authorities. Now, a comprehensive and detailed operating schedule has been proposed for this comparatively modest and primarily food-led establishment. In my submission, in its current form, it will ensure the licensing objectives will be robustly promoted and that they will not be undermined. There is no history of crime and disorder or public nuisance at these premises in its current format. The application is simply for the on-sale of alcohol and late-night refreshment. No live or recorded music or any other form of regular entertainment is entailed in this application. The hours are not excessive, and numerous premises nearby have similar or indeed more extensive permissions, i.e. the railway opposite, the De Burgh and the Go Sing nearby. We don't want any special treatment, Chair, but we do wish to be treated the same as other operators doing exactly the same, or even more than what we seek very nearby. Okay.
When he said it was going to be a debrief, it's more of a presentation, if you don't mind. Is that okay? Okay, now as you'll be aware, each application must be judged on its own facts and merits. The significant merit to this application is a quality application correctly conditioned with specific, appropriate and proportionate control measures, thus minimising any potential that any licensing objective would be undermined. Now, in this hearing, the burden is on the applicant and me particularly, and obviously in consultation with Angelica, to show that the proposed operation, supported by the proposed operating schedule before you, is capable of promoting the licensing objectives and will not undermine them. Any representatives opposing the application have the burden to show that these premises, trading under the operating schedule before you, will undermine the licensing objectives and demonstrate that with evidence pertinent to the proposed operation. In our submission, any subcommittee properly advised could only refuse this application if it is found on the evidence of the representatives to be not capable of promoting the licensing objectives. And you may ask yourself, why do the representatives, aka objectors, need evidence? The answer for that is found in para 9.43 of the section 182 guidance, which clearly states, and I quote if you allow me, the authority's determination should be evidence-based, justified as being appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives and proportionate to what is intended to achieve. Significantly, there is not a shred of empirical evidence pertinent to this application before you whatsoever. There is absolutely no history of disordered noise complaints or indeed any other cause for concern evidenced involving these premises or this applicant or any similar business operated by her to date. That is an undeniable and self-evident fact. So let me walk you through who has, or rather, actually in the beginning, and more pertinently, frankly, who has not made a representation or objection. The police, being the lead responsible authority and source of expert evidence on all crime, disorder and ASB issues in Hillingdon, they've made recommendations concerning additional conditions and we have agreed to them all in their entirety. Even this morning we have agreed, Penny I call it, PC Brown's final request for a 30-minute drinking up time, which we again are in complete accord with. So there's one more condition to go on the police conditions, and they are all agreed. Okay? Environmental protection, who lead on public nuisance. They've made no representation, as have trading standards, children's services, who are the lead agencies for the protection of children from harm. Public health and planning and highways departments have all made no representation either. Therefore, as a panel, you cannot be insensitive to the fact that the principal authorities which lead on the specific licensing objectives raised in other reps have no concerns regarding this application. We are left then with the objections from the licensing authority and numerous elected representatives and local residents, and I'm going to deal with those in turn. The licensing authority, here in the person of Mr. Ferrer, objects on the grounds of prevention of crime, disorder, public nuisance and protection of children from harm. We tried to engage with him during the consultation period and the weeks afterwards, but he was minded that any negotiation should take place here in this forum, and we respect that. Fine. So I'd first point out that para 9.14 of section 182 guidance, that's where it tells us that, and I quote again, licensing authorities are not expected to act as responsible authorities on behalf of other parties. Para 9.15 continues. It is reasonable to expect that other responsible authorities, such as planning, children's services and whatever, should intervene where the basis of that intervention falls within the remit of that other responsible authority. For example, and this is all quotes, this is, the police should make representations where those representations are based on concerns about crime and disorder. Here Mr. Ferrer has objected on grounds of crime, disorder, public nuisance and protection of children from harm, all licensing objectives where the licensing authority is not the lead agency. The precise circumstances where a licensing authority can lead on behalf of others is laid out in para 9.16 of the 182 guidance, and with respect in my submission, that test is not met in these circumstances. It is not, again, in my submission for Mr. Ferrer to stand in the shoes of other responsible authorities who themselves take no issue with this application, as the section 182 guidance precludes him from doing so. Okay, so the numerous other representations, strangely enough, the things raised by Mr. Ferrer in his representation are dealt with for upstream in the following concerns raised by the local residents, and I'll get to those right now. The numerous other representations cover many diverse subjects. I know you would have read them and attached the appropriate weight. I won't personalise it by naming the makers in particular, it's really unhelpful, but I will rightly deal with the potential issues they raise in order of appearance in the bundle. Okay, not in order of importance, but in the order they appear within the bundle as you read through it. They are, I'm going now, noise, parking, antecedents of the premises when used as a cafe, including litter, firearms, drugs, sex workers, misogyny, when the premises was being refurbished by tradesmen and contractors, timings at an inappropriate location and neighbourhood, crime disorder, the highest crime rate, whatever that means, ASB, SIA provision, underage drinking, music, precedent, fire evacuation, plastic plants in a restaurant, traffic congestion, access for emergency vehicles, e-scooters, disabled access, the presence of a mosque nearby, shisha smoking, lack of toilets, rats and rubbish, light pollution from West Drayton station platform lights, nightclub, and the safety of women walking past. That's a lot there, but I've broken it down into subject headings to help us. I think that's about it, and I will now deal with each in turn, if you will allow me. Now, firstly, the antecedents of the premises when used as a cafe, including litter, firearms, dealing with misuse of drugs, presence of sex workers on site, and misogyny, to include the behaviours of tradesmen when the premises were being refurbished most recently. Members of the panel, this is a new application de novo. What may or may not have gone on at this site under previous occupancy has no bearing on this current application and cannot go to this applicant's detriment in any shape or form. Noise, revellers, music, nightclub. This is second sort of grouping. This is a food-led operation where people can gather in the lounge before dining or repair to it thereafter, retire to the lounge. A sports bar, vertical drinking establishment, or banging nightclub, or J.D. Wetherspoons, it is not. There is no regulated entertainment whatsoever entailed in the application before you, live and recorded music, all the rest of it. Okay, this has involved over £1.2 million worth of investment in the refurbishment of this site as a food-led establishment. You've got the photos in front of you showing all the tables and the kitchens and what have you. Please do not ignore the evidence of your own eyes. There is no evidence before you that people will arrive at these premises as a watering hole of last resort within the nighttime economy. Only the speculation that they will, and were they to do so, they would not be welcome. Okay. Timings at an inappropriate location and neighbourhood. With respect, I've really got to take issue on this one. Okay? The railway arms opposite have longer hours and regulated entertainment, as does the Go Sing. The De Burgh can serve until 1 o'clock Thursday to Saturday. When we submitted this application, the one in its original format before you, Chair and panel, we saw the licences that were granted in the area, and ours is a lesser reflection of them. Okay? Nearly every off-licence nearby has longer hours, and even KFC can stay open till 2 o'clock in the morning. Okay? Right, parking obstruction to the pavement, traffic congestion, access to emergency vehicles and the use of e-scooters. Here we go. Parking and traffic flow are not matters for the licensing authority, with respect. Rather, they are the remit of the Planning and Highways Authority. However, that said, there's clearly a lot of heat around that, and we are not insensible to these concerns. Consequently, we have obtained a further parking provision of 7 spaces, and that is evidence before you've got the permissions. It's in your bundle. Additionally, and again, although not a licensing matter per se, and therefore not sitting before you on my submission, we offer an additional condition, and you might want to make a note of that we will monitor the parking of our customers in our bays outside, and will ensure that they park in conformity with the bay markings. I'll give you that again for your legal advisor, if I might, and he will know how to turn that into a great condition, I'm sure. We will monitor the parking of our customers in the bays our bays outside, and will ensure that our customers park in conformity with the bay markings. Okay, subject area number 5 is disabled access and lack of toilets. With respect, that is a matter for the planning authority and not the licensing authority. We maintain that what exists in reality reflects that which was granted by the planning authority. It is for the planning department to act if they deem we are not compliant with those permissions, and as a responsible authority, the planning authority do not object to this application whatsoever in any case. Crime disorder, the highest crime rate ever. ASB, SIA provision, safety of women walking past at night. Okay, let's deal with that. Deal with that in a paragraph. I have served on the panel the crime and ASB stats provided by the Home Office, which helpfully are geolocated to the nearest one is geolocated to under the bridge beside the restaurant. What is immediately evident is that you have a shoplifting problem. What is equally apparent is that less than 7% of crimes in the area are public order crimes, which equates to an average of 1 incident every 46 days. 1 public order incident every 46 days. I provided evidence along with that in the graphs following in that submission and that bundle that Hillingdon is the crime are lowest quartile compared with similar areas, okay, and that in all 3 crime categories Hillingdon is below force and comparative BC Basic Command Unit averages. That's great, by the way. They're doing a great job. I just think put that on record. Okay, so from that empirical data, I'm struggling to understand just what the problem we're trying to fix here is. Is it that the representativ's case is that were this establishment allowed to sell alcohol, then our patrons, upon finishing their meals, will leave the restaurant and suddenly commence a rampage of crime and disorder through the streets of Hillingdon? If so, where is the evidence for that, and on what grounds is that assumption based? Okay, the 7th area, and they're getting smaller as we're going on. Okay, the 7th area is this: rats, rubbish, light pollution, including the light from West Drayton platforms, railway station platform lights. We've already got the necessary refuse arrangements and contracts in place. My client can't do much about the lights from the station. The lead responsible authority for environmental pollution, including light pollution, and the quality of life issues is the Environmental Health Department, and they do not object to this application, and they are your experts on pollution and the like in this London Borough. Fire evacuation plans and plastic plants in a restaurant causing fire hazard. There is already a fire risk assessment in place for this premises. The Fire and Rescue Service have inspected it thoroughly and find no grounds to object to this application either. Number 9 is underage drinking. Okay. We've already offered Challenge 25 scheme as our tactic regarding underage sales. That is national best practice, and there is no evidence that this restaurant will become a mecca for underage drinkers. Incidentally, the committee will already be aware that anyone aged 16 can consume alcohol in a restaurant perfectly lawfully in any event. Presence of a mosque nearby, that's very dealt with really quickly. With respect, the presence of the mosque nearby and occasional parking issues over Eid and other sacred festivals has no bearing on licensable activities at these premises and is therefore an irrelevant consideration. Shisha smoking, this is item 11, shisha smoking. Some are of the opinion that the current arrangements regarding smoking of shisha on site does not conform, with Regulation 2 of the Smoke-Free Premises and Enforcement Regs of 2006. Meanwhile, and for completeness, the architect who designed this and has built many other structures has provided us with a report saying that it does, and that is in front of you. In any event, the licensing committee is not the appropriate authority to determine such matters, as the smoking of shisha is not a licensable activity, and is therefore an irrelevant consideration for the purposes of today's proceedings. 12. Precedent. Some believe that if you grant this licence today, that it will set a precedent. I will take a view on that, please, and point out that any decision arrived at today sets no precedent in law, as each case must be judged on its own merits. Similarly, were this case to proceed on appeal to our magistrates, it's only when it gets to the High Court that any precedent can be set. So, to answer some of that, those are the 12 areas that people have got issues with. Now, to answer some of that, we have served on you numerous statements of truth to tell you an entirely different story. I will ask you to read them in recess with great care, giving a special weight to the testimony of Ms. Nadine Amin. She cannot get here today. I'm afraid she's got childcare issues, and we all respect that. Okay? She lives directly opposite. Her bedroom window overlooks the premises, as does her children's bedroom. And she has no issues. She says that if there were problems, she'd be in here arguing vehemently against this application. But frankly, she is the nearest noise-sensitive resident, and she has no issues with any of it. You'll also be aware that over 100 signatures, you may be aware, nothing to do with us, I only found out recently that over 100 signatures have been placed on a change.org UK online petition in favour of the restaurant from local residents. Okay, right, I'm going to sort of get to some legal bits and then I'm going to let other people have a go, if that's okay. Right, committee, this is an evidence-based decision-making process, and before you is no evidence that this applicant, through this or any of her other operations, has ever sold to children, ever sold to drunks, has ever permitted violent or antisocial or disorderly behaviour to be perpetrated or connected to this or any of her premises. And I'll remind you, this premises operated between December the 5th and December the 28th, the busiest time of the year, with 0 issues from anyone. She has no intention of allowing any such things, permitting or allowing any such things to occur on her premises, as clearly it would threaten her livelihood were she should do so, and she would appear back before you. This hearing is for you to decide solely upon whether the application and its attending operating schedule will undermine or promote the licensing objectives. My submission is more than well conditioned, and the comprehensive conditions, as amended with the police, ensure that that never happens. But let me talk to you very briefly about fear and speculation. The representatives, and they're all good people, nobody's having a go at them or on this, nobody's personalising this, but they are all of a mind that were you to grant this licence, then they fear that problems might ensue. No doubt about it. It runs through the letters like letters through Brighton Rock. There are 2 main reasons why fear and speculation are not admissible in these proceedings. 1. Para 9.43 of Section 182 guidance clearly states that your decision must be evidence-based. Fear and speculation about what might or might not happen at some undisclosed point in the future is a consequence of any decision in here today. It's not evidence. It is what it is. It's speculation. Okay? And secondly, there was a ruling in the case of Daniel Thwaites and Wirral Magistrates back in 2008, the Queen's Bench Division, where the judge, Her Honour Justice Black, handed down a judgment, and in it she said that your decision should be based on real and proper evidence. That's a sort of concertina version of the judgment that runs to many pages, but your lawyer will be completely across that. There is no history of problems with licensable activities at these premises, nothing before you from the lead responsible authorities who champion and lead on the particular licensing objectives which are thought to be offended by this application, and the potential for any such issues is more than properly addressed in the proposed conditions. Now, in the event, right, I can no more look into the future than anybody else in this room. But in the event that there were to be problems, and as much as I can say there won't be, but if there were to be problems at Mandala in future, then Parliament has already provided the proper and lawful mechanism for you, Chair, and your panel to deal with it. It is called the Section 51 review process. Okay, so were you to grant this licence today and problems were to ensue, and I'm as much as I can assuring you they won't, but were they to, then the lawful and correct mechanism to control them is self-evidently provided through the aforementioned Section 51 review procedure, which I am sure you and your panel are not scared to invoke. And therefore, I've been talking for quite a while now. I will rest now and deal with any other issues during questioning or summary. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comprehensive report. I think I've managed to capture most of it, but if I have any questions, we will obviously be asking you.
Now, to save your clerk the problem of writing it all up, if I just send that through Mark to your clerk, and then you can have a look at that in recess if you were minded to.
Thank you very much. I mean, every hearing, it's really good to hear how you've moved forward and your explanations. But we also like to hear from the applicant as well.
All right.
So, the applicant's there, you're there, you're in the business, you're working every day through it. We want to actually hear from your view. So, a couple of, like when you started, how you're perceiving the business, what is it to you, etc., etc. So if we can have a brief summary from you, please.
Hello, thank you. I believe all the owners have designed the beautiful restaurant for all the local residents. So all the lounge, restaurant is made about the locals. So they find out what is the nationality of the locals. So there is a lot of people from Middle Eastern, which the lounge and shisha is something which they're looking for. And also restaurant for European people, which is also in the area quite a lot. So they try to mix everything for the local residents who are our objectors also. They spend lots of money to build this in nice, beautiful design, and they are full lit. They don't want to sell alcohol, even if anyone be there before. They can see we have no any basic alcohol. We have no pipe in the bar. It's nothing like this. It's not pub at all. It's not nightclub how people. The design is maybe a little bit looking tricky because it's lots of lights and look maybe like the nightclub, but definitely it's not. Also about the disabled access, we have the person on the wheelchair in our restaurant, and obviously sometimes it's coming to your mind when you're in the situation. Straight away we buy the ramp for all disabled people can claim to the toilet. The gentleman was using our toilet, so ladies' toilet is good enough to wheelchair go through. So obviously the person was using our toilet, and we just need to, I believe, put some pole to help them. That is what we need.
They're not that bothered about the toilet.
Yeah, just I think that disabled things also can be, disabled people can be also welcome in our restaurant, and they can manage also at the moment. I hope in the future we're gonna make much more for the people, but definitely I want to say everything is on the food lit, and we want to just make sure we are restaurant, not night pub, club, whatever, drunk people, we are not welcome also
Okay, well done.
Thank you very much, and thank you for speaking as well. We really appreciate it. It's very good to hear from you, so thank you.
Do we have any questions? Yes, Councillor Ukmana.
Thank you, Chair. First, I have a couple of questions for Mr. Semper, please. You said that the parking bays, excuse me, will be monitored.
Yes.
Can you explain how is it 3 bays outside the premises?
There are 3 bays outside.
And how will they be monitored?
The front of house staff will go. Here we go.
Okay, so we already try to do our best, obviously, for parking monitors. We put the yellow cones just to not everyone can park out. Obviously, some people sometimes move themselves, which obviously we try to do our best. It's not always in our hands. When we see someone is parking and the car is too long, so our staff ask them to move the car somewhere else. That's how we monitor the 3 spaces, because it's 3 long spaces and 2 small spaces. The small spaces only we allowed short cars, which we're not going to block the pavement. And also opposite, we are renting 7 parking space from Duca Cafe. They have a 7 parking space we at the moment rent from them, and we actually ask people to park there.
Right. As concerns, excellent. Okay. As concerns directly your question, front of house staff will monitor it, and when they see somebody parking antisocially or carelessly, they will go out and ask them to move it, reposition it. And if they find one, they will go through the tables. If it's one of their customers, they will ask for it to be moved. Ma'am.
Through you, Chair. So has this exercise just started as the complaints came in, or was this being carried out anyway?
Well, we didn't realise it was a problem until we were made aware of it. And since we've been made aware of it, she's been all over it. Now, some people will park momentarily badly, okay, and someone can come along and take a photograph of that in the 5 minutes before her staff have got somebody moved. And this all presupposes the person who's using that car parking space is one of her customers. Unfortunately, sometimes people hop in and what have you. But she's on it. She understands it's causing concerns with the local residents, and she's working to put it, this ongoing, making sure that people are parking lawfully. Of course, the extra 7 is going to take the pressure off those ones at the front anyway. So, thank you.
So the extra, through you, Chair, the extra 7 spaces that you've acquired, what is the distance from your restaurant to the 7 spaces acquired?
I believe it's around 20 meters. So it's just opposite, across the road.
Thank you. And I have one question, another question, please, Chair.
Sorry, can we just confirm? You did say 20 metres, didn't you?
Yeah, I believe around.
Sorry,
so just close the road.
Fine. Thank you. Sorry, Count.
Sorry. And my question to the applicant, please. You said that a survey was carried out within the area, and the restaurant Mandala accommodates for the local people. That's very, very good to hear. Very good to hear. So the question that I have is that, is Mandala the only shisha lounge in the area?
No. This is the North Star Shisha Lounge. This is maybe 10 minutes drive from Mandala, another Atlantic Lounge, and I don't know. Oh, and Smoky Boys, just 5-minute drive maybe from Mandala also.
They're nothing to do with you, though, are they?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Are they connected with your business?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Davis.
Thank you. Just want to clarify some things. So you've said, can I just confirm, what is going to be the last entry into the building? So what is your last entry?
Yeah, this is the work we did with the police.
Yeah.
They don't want anybody coming up in the last 30 minutes.
Yeah.
They also don't want any service in the last 30 operating minutes as well. Okay. The only people that can come in and out in the last 30 minutes, therefore, according to the police, the police suggestion, is people popping out to smoke. But the fact, the last 30 minutes is wind down time anyway. There's no more drink to be had. Somebody pops out for smoke, they're going to go home anyway.
So just to confirm that on Valentine's Day we could have people entering the building at 1:30 in the morning, or at 1:10 in the morning.
That's of all the ones. That's a really, really tricky one. Not a great example. I'll tell you for why. Valentine's people tend to book. You've already sold those tables weeks in advance. Okay, but yes, on a bank holiday, people could eventually turn up at 1:30, which is no different than the other licensed premises in the area. So, like I say, each application is going to be treated on its own merits. We're not asking for special treatment, sir. We're just asking to be treated the same as the others.
I completely agree with that. I just, as a local myself, someone who works in this trade, I find it very hard for someone going out for dinner at 1 o'clock in the morning, but that is your business, completely down to you to run it that way. I respect that. Chairman, I have another couple of questions, if I may.
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Can we just confirm that what is going to be your door entry strategy? So what is your plan for door staff, SIA door staff?
It's on a risk assessed basis. We did get it, well, I tried to engage with Mr. Ferrer, but I'm afraid that didn't really work. We thought of an SIA, when you get to 30 covers, when you get 30 people in there, one SIA kicks in after, 9 o'clock at night, whatever negotiations would have resolved. And then when you get up to over 75 to that 110, then it's 2 SIA.
Okay. Just, sorry, for you, Chairman, to the applicant, do you feel that you, as a business, will be adequately be able to manage this? So, at the moment, you've got no SIA door staff. I'm really concerned about you overstretching yourself. That's why I ask. You're going to manage parking bays. You're going to have people waiting tables. You're going to have someone on the door taking bookings. And now I hear that we've got a strategy that maybe not in place for door supervisors. So.
Before she answers that, sir, I think we have offered SIA on a risk assessed basis.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in the report, so I just want to double check.
Okay.
I get some clarity on that.
Fine.
Yes. So we have some plan. Obviously, we already talked with the company who is the door securities in our events or over people in the restaurant. Obviously, we're going to have staff to taking a booking separate, so that's why we are going to employ up to 12 people in full operation, just because we need the people to operate everything in the proper way.
Okay, perfect. And I have 2 more questions, if I may, Chairman. Thank you. So just for clarity from you guys, am I right in understanding that you're going to have no live entertainment in the premises?
There's no live entertainment.
So there's no provision for live
at all, sir.
So you would be happy for that to go in, unless it was covered by a tent?
I believe it will.
Yes, sir. If it's not, you don't have to exclude it, sir. If it's not included, it is excluded. Yeah. The only way you could do that is through a tent, and then that would be in accordance with environmental health and the police, who've got perfect right to say, no, I'm sorry, we're not having that.
Okay. And my very last question to you, sorry for you, Chairman. So how long have you been a DPS?
So I'm quite fresh DPS, but I was working, so I never need to be DPS before. This business have no DPS, that's why I make the DPS step. But before I was working with selling alcohol managed restaurants, many times with 100 covers, and I have never problem with that. So the PS, I am just first time, to be honest, but I believe I can manage nicely.
Okay. Through you, Chairman, could you just confirm the licensing objectives for me?
Of course, is safety, innocence, children safe, and crime.
And there's one more.
What did she say? Sorry.
So she said safety, children,
innocence, and crime.
Hang on. She's saying nuisance.
Yeah.
Okay, I take that.
And
My reason for asking that is I just want to make sure that all DPS
Yeah,
actually
that's
know
okay,
it. And being on this committee for a number of years, we've seen it.
Yeah, it's just the way she pronounces it sounds like innocence when it comes out.
Yes. No, that's fine. Thank you, Chairman. I'll leave it there.
No problem. Thank you for clarifying. I do have a few questions as well. Just for clarification, can you tell me how many people or how many customers your building holds?
110.
And you have
Nine.
110 customers and 7 car parking spaces.
Yes, that's true, but we are a restaurant, so we don't...
That's it.
Yes,
I just wanted to confirm.
Okay, that she has 11 car parking spaces.
11.
Yes.
7 plus
There's
the front
7
one.
down the side, 4 across the front.
So that's why I'm asking. So I
3,
just want to clarify.
10, my mistake, sorry.
So can I just
No, that's
clarify the
actually
car
five.
parking
3 long
spaces?
and
Right,
2
okay,
short.
hang on, we've got to let her speak, sorry about this. Could you give the proper answer to the lady?
Thank
Okay,
you.
so 7 parking spaces we are renting just opposite across the road. We have 5 parking spaces just out of the restaurant. So it's 3 long and 2 short. The 2 short is just for shorter cars. So
So how many altogether, sorry?
11.
11, yeah.
That's 12.
12, sorry, 12, yeah, 12. 12.
So your maths isn't our thing, clearly, Chair.
12 car parking spaces.
12 car parking spaces.
Right, and how many people, sorry? 100, did we say?
110.
110, thank you.
109,
Thank you. I've just got a few more questions, if that's okay, and it is the subcommittee that asks questions at the moment. Right, okay. Can you just confirm as well how long, because I was just trying to imagine, I saw a picture in the pack about, the extra parking, and I was just trying to imagine the alleyway, so we can get a really good idea. Can you confirm how long it is? And I think the width was 1 car, is that correct? So how long, this is in the extra space. Are you using that now, by the way, the extra car parking space?
Sorry, I don't know which one you
She's
mind.
asking how wide is the alleyway down to the 7 car parking spaces. I would honestly just refer to my earlier thing that parking and whatever, it's not a licensing objective, but I understand we've got to address the concerns in the room. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I just would like to know the length of it.
What's the length of it?
Just roughly, it doesn't have to be, I just need to know roughly.
So I will say maybe 20 steps.
20 steps? Mark, have you got it on Street View, mate, so we can show the panel?
Yeah.
I can see he's working away like this. It's got to be Street View, isn't it?
Yeah, it's easy.
Stand by. It's not giving me a direct view down the alleyway. But it looks to be basically a small front. It is situated across the road from the restaurant, and it is situated between the mosque car park, and a residential property. So going by the size of the residential property, you've got a small garden, you've then got the house, and then you've got a small rear garden. So I would give approximately 30 metres, I think, to get down the alleyway from the pavement to then get to the car park.
That's brilliant. Just gives me an idea, so thank you. I appreciate that.
Roughly.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I've just got one other clarification. When did you open? I know it sounds a bit, but what was the date you opened? How long have you been running?
So actually the application was from 13th of December, but 1st of December, but we open week after. In real. So even we have the 10 notice, we open 1 week later.
Fired off a few more questions, I think, for everyone else. Okay, Councillor Mamala.
This is a question for the applicant. I know Mr. Semper said that the cafe was in operation before you took over. Were you involved in the cafe at all?
No, at all.
Thank you.
Councillor Davis.
Just to confirm, so there's, as we know, we can see, and there's been a number of concerns raised by residents. Have you given any sort of form of contact details to the residents to contact you or the business directly? Have you set up some sort of dialogue? I know in past histories and past cases where there's been a dedicated number, if there was a concern the residents could bring. Is that something you've done or actively done?
Yes, we did. I give my contact to some of local residents. We made 20% for local residents to bring them in the property on the beginning. But I believe our marketing team was not good enough to show local people we open. That's maybe is the issue.
Okay. And sorry, Chairman, one more question. Is it just yourself that owns this business, or is there other people that are personal licence holders, etc., that will be involved?
No, at the moment it's only me and just me.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have one final question. I do apologise for all these questions,
no,
but
that's
it
okay.
is really important that we get a clear idea before we come into discussion of what's coming forward to us. What percentage, and I think we've covered this with the licensing officer, what percentage is dining? I know it's very difficult to obviously tell because you've only been open a short amount of time, so I do understand that. But could you give me a percentage of the building and how many people against, and I suppose that would come, it's the same question but just answered in a different way, how many people would be sitting down eating and how many people would be sitting maybe in the shisha bar and then, because I see the layout, so just, because you've got downstairs, haven't you, you're saying the restaurant's upstairs and you've got downstairs, so what's the percentage, how many people are we looking at, are the people downstairs? Is it suitable if they have food? What's the operational regulations around the food and the alcohol?
Mostly we like to sell alcohol within the meal. That is the things. People like to come, have a dining, have a cocktails, have a wine. We have only small waiting area, which is 6 people, and 3 obviously chairs next to the bar, so say 9. The rest of them they can eat and have a drink at the same time. So mostly is, I will say, 80% of dining.
I just want to confirm that because I picked up that is what you said as well about it being a restaurant.
Yes.
So
Food-led,
yeah. So I just want to confirm you're saying 80% is dining, yeah?
Well, if she's saying 9 for the bar and those seats, I'm not very good at maths, but that's less than 10%, isn't it? 9 out of 110. That's about 8%.
I think the question I'm really getting at is the majority of it.
Yes.
That's what That's what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah.
So from what you're saying, to me, is the majority of it is actually the restaurant.
Yes.
Dining.
Yes.
Would it help if I read you the spec again, just for?
No, it's fine. I understand. I have it here, and I understand. But I'm just trying to because I just struggle to see. But we have this in the discussion, which is why I'm asking you now. I just struggle to see the bottom area being dining. But
on Tuesday, we sent 12 photographs on great detail showing you the nature and quality and the layout of the interior. So that's the feel I'm trying to portray to you, ma'am.
Yeah, that's fine. This is just a part where we're asking the questions so we can really gain a good understanding and confirmation.
Yes, ma'am.
So thank you for bearing with us. They're important. Also, I have just reminded myself, memory fatigue sometimes comes to us all, doesn't it? But I'm just sort of reminded everyone that the shisha area is not included into this council licensing committee because that comes under the health and safety. So just wanted to clear that we will not be discussing that in this part of the committee. Is that okay? Right, is there any more okay, Lakmana, we must have the most questions today, it's very good.
This is a question for the applicant again. Are you involved in any other business with the same name, Mandala?
No.
Thank you.
That's a closed question, that was.
Do we have any further questions from our subcommittee? No. Okay. Not a problem at all. Okay, we will now go over to the other parties, so Daniel, over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. The licensing, I'm here on behalf of the Licensing Authority as a responsible authority under the Licensing Act. Chairman, we raised a representation and you'll see it in full, Appendix 3, page 45. What I don't intend to do is go through every single page. The representation was raised based on assessment of the application, but also a visit carried out to the premises unannounced by me on the 18th of December 2024. And the representation has been raised on the grounds of prevention of crime and disorder and prevention of public nuisance. What I would do at this point is correct Mr. Sempo, who stated twice that it was raised in relation to child protection, protecting children harm. So I'm just confirming it. It's just those two licensing objectives. The applicant, consultant, agent has described the application as comprehensive, robust, detailed. Clearly from the discussions that we've had and the assessment, my view is that it does not at all. There's massive holes in relation to the application. Clearly from the discussions that we've had, there is no certainty or clarity in relations. And on the conversation that I had with Mr. Semper following the closing of the consultation, we didn't reach agreement because there were still concerns that I had with it, and that's fair to keep my representation in. And so I highlighted those concerns to him on the telephone, and I'll highlight them to you now. Chairman, the first issue is in terms of food. We've had a discussion about food. They've described the application as primary food-led and focuses on food and dining. And they may have sent us fancy photos, but if we look at the black and white of the application, there is not a single measure or condition about food. And he knows this. Maybe they don't want a restriction in terms of food. I can't say. But what we do expect from, and he is smiling because he knows, what we do expect in terms of a food-led premises is a number of measures or conditions. So there is certainty. So, for example, ancillary table food condition. For example, waiter, waitress service. For example, at the least, substantial food to be made available. When I was speaking to Mr. Semper, there was none of that. There was no information on that. So, as a starting point, what can we say what is the identity of this premises? How is it going to be run? Because right now, if we look at it, you could literally have vertical drinking, both floors. You know, the illustrations in the tables, they're not even needed for the plans. And he knows this as well. They could be wiped away at any point, and there could be freestanding vertical drinking at any time. And that's where my concern lies in terms of food. If we move into the crime and disorder licensing objective, what I would say at this point, I have to mention the Health Act. Now, I know you've mentioned we don't cover that area, but I mention it because it is important, because that particular area will have licensed activities in it, and it will be covered in the plans. And they have submitted architect design drawings saying that it's compliant. Our view, I'll just say from this point, it is not compliant because it has to be permanently open. And I'll leave it at that point. And I raise that under the prevention of crime and disorder because we're trying to prevent further offences occurring in the future. And this is what I advised Mrs. Zell when I met her. In terms of staying with crime and disorder, as Councillor Davis has pointed out, SAI staff has to be considered, I would say. Risk assessment lacks clear detail. Like, when are we going to get a risk assessment? When they feel like it? How does it take into account parties, gatherings turning up? In my discussions with Mr. Semper, I said that there should be some sort of clarity or certainty if we're looking at SAI dormant. So I said, for example, those nights, Fridays, Saturdays, and particularly Sundays, which are going 1 o'clock in the morning, there'll be no sort of control in terms of their dispersal sort of policy. And it's already been raised that the designated premises supervisor will have to cover all those areas. In addition to like SIA argument, the argument could also be used in terms of prevention of public nuisance as well, where it would be helpful. I'll move on to prevention of public nuisance, and I won't spend too much time because I know we're going to touch on it with other submissions. But firstly, dispersal, we've had discussions about dispersal, but again, there may be a policy, we just don't know the specific details about it. You know, what is the process, what is the procedures, what we're going to have at the end of the night? Are people just going to be left out hard? Is there a winding down zone? These are all questions, and so that's why I've left that in terms of my submission. The outside area, there was conversations about that, the outside area, that there would be no, and we were open to this actually, to be fair to the consultant. He mentioned that the outside, and I believe it's the garden area, so if you look at the plan on page, it's the left-hand side of the building, it says garden area, that wouldn't be used. and we thought that would be helpful. I should raise that point. I won't go massively into parking. Yes, we have mentioned that it's, strictly speaking, not a licensing act, but where we're concerned of it in terms of public nuisance is the possible effects and consequences, particularly at dispersal, particularly at 1 o'clock in the morning on those days where it's later. There's been talk of, certainly when I visited, I counted 3, and some of those were being used by, it looked like, staff. There's been the recommendation and also the undertaking that there will be 7 spaces, but during dispersal, during that late night, there is going to be that walking across, we would say, the likelihood of the walking across, people leaving, 1 o'clock in the morning, doors shutting, people saying goodbye, music possibly playing by engines. I mean, in addition to that, the 1 o'clock, particularly on those days that I've mentioned, there's Uber and taxi drivers which are inevitably going to park outside on the street, and there will be potential disturbance from that as well. The last area I'll mention in terms of prevention of public nuisance is the shisha area. I won't go into the health act again, but if it was permanently open, there will be disturbance in terms of the people consuming alcohol, having late night refreshment in that area. Chairman, that's the highlights of my representation, if you like. I'm happy to take any questions or queries that the committee or anyone has for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Davis.
Thank you for your report, Daniel. Can you just confirm, what time did you visit?
It was 3:30 in the afternoon on December the 18th. It was before Christmas.
Just to set the picture in my head, there was a Thames running at that time, wasn't there?
Yes, that's right.
Sorry, through you, Chairman. Was there many people in the establishment?
No, it was just getting started, and I must say when I met with the DPS, they were in the middle of some marketing sort of like shoot, so she was open to speaking to me about the application for half an hour.
Okay, and one more, Chairman, through you. Just to confirm, I already know the answer, but for the record, temporary event notices are not applied for through you guys, are they? They are automatically given, there's no...
The licensing process, the application, the responsible authorities, as Mr. Semper has mentioned, get consulted on by the police and our environmental protection team.
Thank you.
Councillor Barner.
Just one clarification, because I think Mr. Semper said he had tried to connect with you and there was no connection, but from what you're saying...
There was a couple of times... When I sent the email to their clients about the Health Act, he called me back straight back. I think it was a Friday sort of evening, and we confirmed that we would speak the following week on Tuesday I do have the date, Tuesday the 14th of January. So we spoke at 10 o'clock in the morning, we made a meeting, we had sort of discussions, and it was very much, these are my concerns, what do we have to sort of like say about it? But like Mr. Semper said, I politely sort of said, well, I'd rather have these discussions in the form of the licensing subcommittee because I think they would benefit the actual decision and there's an informed decision.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Davis.
We're going to test you today. In your professional opinion, the other licensable establishments within the area, would you say they are similar to this or not? So,
I would say with what Mr. Semper has said, like each case on its merits. We're aware in the report that there's other things. They have mentioned that yes, they don't want to be treated differently, but the TESI agrees in terms of each case on its merits. You have the information about the other premises there, but we should be sort of, my view is in terms of the decision-making process, it should be done on each case on its merits.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions? No? I do have a question, actually. We're talking about, I think the food thing is really concerning me. I think that's my big concern. What would you expect an establishment, so when you're working with an establishment and you're obviously confirming that it's food, so we're looking at 100 people being served food, basically, it's 110, so 100. When working with the applicant, what would you expect to see? What would we expect to see?
So if it was food-led, I'd mention the main condition about ancillary table food, but what we expect to see from the agent, and I think when we walked around, there was discussions about this, confirmation of, okay, where is the table food dining going to take place? Is it going to be sort of like upstairs? And if that's the case, then there's clarity on that. Then a condition can be attached to that. and this was mentioned to the consultant as well. And so it very much depends on their operation, and that's why that is my starting point in terms of like the food. Because if you can determine what the premise is going to be, then you can like assess risk, assess the licensing objectives. But that's why I put in my representation. It may be the case, and I haven't heard this point, that it might evolve or change during certain days or hours, and so we have to take that into account as well. So it could start off as a dining premises, predominantly sort of food, but on a Friday or a Saturday night later on, it could move into more lounge places, and we do have those in the borough as well. But without that clarity, I have to sort of say, well, we're going to have to put measures or have to think about controls or checks or balances, because as I said, what would happen as a consequence is that there'll be no restriction whatsoever, even though that's what they intend to sort of do.
I'm understanding what you're saying, so it's actually the clarity on what's happening, and you haven't had the confidence to have heard the clarity about what the establishment and how much of it is going to be eating.
Yeah, not as yet.
Yeah. Okay. And one more was the dispersal. I mean, obviously we would assume that we have a dispersal plan, right, and something in place. Has the applicant worked with you regarding the dispersal notice and the dispersal plan, and has actually the applicant worked with you around items concerning, you know, the licensing authority? I know we said we're going to bring them to here. I do understand that, you said, but in the meantime.
We had a brief discussion about dispersal as I was going through my concerns on the representation. We didn't have any sort of, I would say, fruitful discussions about it. I was expecting more details on that, or probably the policy itself, or to be presented, but I haven't heard anything that details that so far in the conversations.
Thank you very much. That's all of my questions. Do you have any further questions, councillors? Okay, we go on to our authorities. So, PC Penny Brown.
Thank you. So our priority is to ensure, obviously, that the conditions and the hours are appropriate and proportionate to the business, but also robust enough to be upholding the licensing objectives, with our focus obviously being on the prevention of crime and disorder. So I'll start by mentioning, obviously, the conditions. We have met with both the applicant and discussed the business and the conditions, and we've also had discussions with the agent via email and via phone, and even very briefly this morning as well. So I'd like to point out that conditions were already proposed in the form of the operating schedule in the original application, so I think you'll find those page 34 to 35. There has been mentioned already of further conditions that we had suggested, which have been agreed, and they, I believe, were page 36 of the agent's addendum. So I won't necessarily read through all of those, although I'm happy I can certainly, by the way everyone's looking at their paperwork, I can certainly touch on those. So they were to do with the capacity of the venue being limited at 110, a written dispersal policy being there available for us to be able to see a written policy, which I must say we did mention this morning. It's not something that we've seen as yet, but that will be made available to us. So I can't comment on what that will entail at this stage. A further condition with regards to the no admittance or readmittance within 30 minutes of the terminal hour. I would say, obviously, with regards to terminal hour, to make sure the language is clear, particularly for the applicant who will be running the business, and with the discussion of the drinking up time, just to clarify whether we're talking here about 30 minutes at the terminal time of the licensable activities, which I would suggest we are, as opposed to the closing time, just to make that, you know, with these conditions do need to be very clear for the applicant to make sure that they can follow them, and we don't want them to be falling foul of things here. Further conditions around no glass and glass bottles to be taken from the premises. I would highlight the sale of alcohol is on sale only, it's not off sales. Bar area to be cleaned regularly of glass and glassware. And the operating schedule already does mention the written risk assessment for the security, which again has been touched on today, and we just reiterated some of the things that we wanted to be recorded on that, which, as I say, has all been agreed. With regards to hours, obviously there's been a slight change with the fact that the 30 minutes drinking up time has been agreed, so that is bringing things back slightly by those 30 minutes. So that's something to be mindful of. I would say, as again has been mentioned, I don't want to repeat too much, there were tens over the December period, and we did not have any complaints, and there was no reports of any crime and disorder. I would mention, however, that when we did meet with the applicant, she did tell us that the venue was closing before 11 p.m. on those dates, and last orders were at 10:30 in the evening on those dates. So they, even though they had applied for longer, they weren't being used to the full extent that they could have been. And she did say to us that she had very few customers, less than 20, and she had 2 SIA on. So obviously things will change as business picks up, but just to give you a little bit of an idea from our point of view, what we understand how the business was in that period of December when they were testing the water. I'd also like to just mention that obviously the similarities and differences between the other licences in the vicinity. Again, that's something you've spoken to Mr. Ferrer about as well. Yes, they have hours as late, if not later, and they also have regulated entertainment. So there are sort of similarities and differences here. But I'd say the main difference, and I know the shisha is not a licensable activity, but the fact that the shisha will be in a proportion of the venue and it will obviously be open, that's, I would say, one of the main differences between the other venues, and that comes down to obviously the public nuisance side of things. The other venues that do have the regular entertainment and the late hours, they are enclosed, so there is quite a difference there. Obviously, we're here to help and advise today and answer any questions. As I said, with the crime and disorder, it's minimal within the area. We haven't got anything to be attributed to the venue at this stage. And I'd also just sort of like the last sort of thing I'd like to touch on, because again it's something that's been discussed, is as I say, we're here to advise that there's concerns around the vertical drinking and the restaurant aspect. Although some of the conditions already go some way to limit the venue from being more of a bar, and the fact that, as I say, there is no regulated entertainment, we do have the capacity in there at 110, but we've also got the applicant and the agent. They've kindly sort of given us a breakdown of the different areas, and considering the different setup of those areas, potentially, if you were mindful, or if the applicant and agent were mindful, something to consider could be further limiting the number of people in each area or at a certain time. So potentially, for example, if the concern is that the lounge area to the side that's going to be used as shisha, bear with me, if the capacity at the moment there is 25, so potentially limiting that to that number, or slightly above that number, maybe just at certain times in the evening if they are going to be going on to a later hour. As I say, it's just maybe something that could be thought about, and maybe more so relevant to the bar area. If the capacity there, if I believe was sort of 6, if there was a limit to say that, I don't know, only a dozen people were to be using that area at one time, or 15 or whatever it is, to give some sort of leniency here. And I'm not necessarily saying this needs to be put in place, but maybe that is something that could be considered to show that this is a predominantly restaurant food-led area, and again with mention of conditions for table service and food being available and alcohol being served as ancillary to a meal. Again, maybe that's relevant for certain areas, so not the bar area, but certainly in the first floor area. So the first floor area, alcohol will only be served ancillary to a meal. This is all sorts of things that could be considered, tweaked potentially. I know it's something we did speak with the applicant about and hadn't come up with anything concrete as to how that would be best served. I'm very mindful that they have their business plan and how they wish to operate, and I don't want the restrictions of any conditions to be too restrictive. But however, just trying to keep it relevant to how the business does intend to be run, and showing that it is food-led. Possibly a little bit waffly there, I do apologise, not quite as concise an argument as has been put forward. But as I say, we are here to help and advise and answer any questions, and if I can be of help, please fire away.
Yeah, no, thank you for that input and that comprehensive report. Councillors, any questions? Yes, Councillor Marner.
We talk about the capacity being at 110, and I think one of the conditions or suggestions is not to exceed 100. How would that be policed?
It's always 110. Penny and I were at variance as to what the...
Sorry, I need to just stop you there legally because this is not for discussion. We're asking questions, so it has to be a question. So I do apologise. It has to be a question for you to answer, PC Penny.
Yes, thank you. Originally, I suggested 100 people as the capacity because having had a conversation with the applicant, she had said that the capacity she believed was around 100. So that's where we went in, and the agent had responded with the fact that the fire risk assessment is 110. And again, I'm guided by what the business and what other authorities have put forward to what the capacity is to agree. It would be foolish of me to go in and say I'm going to limit you at 50 or 200. I'm guided by what's there, and it is just, if that's the guidance that has been given based on it being a restaurant, then I think it's good to put that limit in, again, to prevent the risk of it becoming more of a bar, nightclub, that sort of environment where there's a lot of vertical drinking, where people are crammed in. But as with regards to adhering to that will be down to the applicant to do. And I would suggest that if it is predominantly food-led, that's quite simply done by table covers. They know how many tables they've got, they know the number of bookings, so they can see their capacity limit. If they are having additional people coming in, they will know that they're becoming to an excess. And also the use of SIA as well, if needed. But predominantly, I would expect that to be managed by the table covers and the bookings.
One further question. Just one other question. Are you aware of how many people were accommodated during the tens that were given during the month of December?
I only know from the meeting I had, which I believe was the 18th of December, that prior to that, the tens, the applicant told me that they'd had fair few units. I believe she said around 10 or so I've been generous by saying under 20. But that there wasn't a lot, and as I say, it wasn't the late hours. Obviously, things will no doubt change as business picks up, and I'm sure there have been changes to that. But we didn't visit during those particular hours to see.
Thank you. I have one question, but actually I'm not sure whether it is directed in your area, and I might have meant to have asked Daniel this, so just bear with me. But I did read on the paperwork that obviously the applicant's been working with you, and I can see that from your report on what you're saying. But there was also an adjustment on the Sunday hours, wasn't it? Was that with you guys, that they were in agreement to actually reduce the Sunday from 1 o'clock to 12 o'clock, I think? Yeah.
Yes, so when we met with the applicant at the venue, and the Safer Neighbourhood Policing team came along with us as well, we did discuss the hours, and in particular I did mention that I would imagine or foresaw that the Sunday in particular might be the issue being particularly late. At the time, the applicant said to me that she felt that was something that could potentially be brought forward. She didn't foresee that she would necessarily be needing the full hours that had been requested, which I think is also potentially reflected in the use of the tens as well. Again, asking for more, but not necessarily needing it. But I think I did highlight the fact that the Sunday late hours, obviously going into Monday morning. At the end of the day, Monday morning is a working day, and children with school life and so on. So it's slightly different to the Friday and Saturday. So yes, that was discussed and highlighted.
Lovely. Thank you for confirming that. That's great. Any more questions? No? Brilliant. Okay. We can now move on to our other parties. And we have, first of all, Councillor Sweeting. Thank you.
I think, through you, Chair, the Chair of the Residents Association would like to speak first.
That's absolutely fine. So thank you, Councillor Sweeting. So welcome. Good morning. Welcome. Please introduce yourself. And I think it's Alison Roper, is that right?
Yes, thank you. Yes, Alison Roper, I'm the Chair of the Residents Association, and it's great
Welcome.
to meet you all, great to see people again. We've met before, which is lovely to see you again. So yes, I just would like to read a statement, which again I'm happy to share afterwards. And I want to start by saying on record that the majority of residents of the Garden City estate who I represent do not have an issue with Mandala serving alcohol. I noticed in a lot of the statements of truth that patrons have been informed that we were objecting to the sale of alcohol, so these statements of truth are not actually correct. Of the 35 submissions from local residents, 11 wanted the application rejected outright, so it's not all of a mind, despite Mr Semper's comments. Those requesting the refusals were actually related to parking, to access, as well as the extended opening hours. The reality is that the submission was not done in time for the opening in December, so I would like to set the record straight on that. First of all, I'd like to share what we are looking to get out of this hearing, so let's start on a really positive note in terms of what we would like to get out of the hearing, and then I will share some of the concerns that I've heard from residents. We would love to have an 11 p.m. closing on weekdays and Sundays, and midnight on Friday night and Saturday night. And this is echoed in pretty much all of the comments from residents of the Garden City estate. In terms of the parking, we would like the parking to be removed. It's not fit for purpose and will allow people to first of all exit safely in the event of a fire, because it actually blocks the fire exit. Despite the venue being aware of our concerns about parking, nothing has been done, so I take objection to the comment about the monitoring happening, because actually there's been issues on a daily basis with parking, despite the parties being aware that we had issues with the parking. This could have been remedied straight away, but the pavement is blocked as recent as yesterday. Actually, it was blocked by a van that is owned by the person who was sharing the parking, who is offering the 7 parking spaces. Given the proximity to the station and very frequent parking, public transport should not be an issue, and I actually think it would actively prevent drink driving. I'll come to the issue of the 7 parking spaces later. As premises describing itself as food-led, we would love it to be exactly that. Of course, we acknowledge that involves the sale of alcohol, and to reiterate, we have no issue with that. But we would like to see the focus of the venue and its advertising to be around food, as any restaurant would. The current website does not actually even have a food menu on it, only a drinks one. Whilst I appreciate that New Year's Eve was an exception, the advertising of a DJ does nothing to move away from the look and feel of the club that it is currently portraying. We would love there also to be an inspection to ensure that the venue is compliant in terms of health and safety, fire regulations and the Disability Act. So I'd now like to highlight some of the concerns raised and then finish with a couple of questions, if I may. So concerns about late night opening. There are concerns about the late night opening from 1 a.m. till 1 a.m. stroke 2 a.m. on occasions on a Friday, Saturday and Sunday night. As a restaurant that is food-led, I'm unsure why they would need to stay open that late, especially on the edge of a wholly residential area. I appreciate there are other premises that are open till that time, but none of those premises are directly adjacent to housing. The 2003 Licensing Act states that licences should be tailored to size, type, location and characteristics of the activities taking place in the premises concerned. I'm not sure whether there is a demand for a restaurant to be open till the early hours of the morning, particularly one so close to a residential area. The hours sought for the provision of late night refreshments is likely to increase the risk of public nuisance, particularly noise. I would also like to draw the committee's attention to a previous planning appeal on the coal yard site, which is directly behind the building, which showed that their business operations needed to stop between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. to protect family life. I do acknowledge that we are talking about a different level of noise. In terms of parking, one of the spaces directly covers the pavements where the car is parked, which prevents access for pedestrians, forcing them to access the road at a blind spot. I raise parking because although Mr Semper talks about it being not relevant to the licensing, I would say it's part of the public nuisance. There have been constant issues of parking on double yellow lines. I asked somebody directly, a patron of the building, to move their car, and can I allow to swear? Is that appropriate? I was actually told to fuck off. Okay? So if parking is to be allowed, there should be a parking notice advising clients not to block their driveway or highway. And one resident, Appendix C, has confirmed that she's had to go over to the restaurant a number of times for asked cars to be moved so she can get out her driveway. The applicant suggested that the parking and access issues were due to deliveries during the renovation, but this has been a constant issue since the premises opened. See my numerous photographs that I've shared with you. As I mentioned before, this happened as recently as yesterday. We have also recorded incidents of parking violations which have been sent to the relevant councils. In terms of the 10 parking spaces, they are in an alleyway directly opposite, as you mentioned, about 20 yards. It's a single alleyway. I would guess it would be a challenge to get 7 cars down there. And you also have then the issue of reversing out onto the main highway. A resident, Appendix C, has observed people pushing buggies, having to use the road as the pavement was blocked, and themselves having to cross the road as well. Just in question around the additional 7 parking spaces, the business that's offering these parking spaces previously operated from Carter House when Mandala is actually being developed, but has since moved to Uxbridge despite showing Carter House as their address. It would be great to see the contract in place for use of the parking spaces. I did ask for a map, but you very kindly told us where that is today. As these are also very close to the restaurant, this will only add to the congestion. The applicant themselves confirmed that on the very few occasions they had been opened, there have been very few customers. So there could be a considerable increase in the number of cars should the capacity reach 110. In fact, one of the Google reviews mentions lots of parking, including free street parking. So the parking situation is not clear for the patrons. As you are aware, Column Mill Road is the only access road on and off the Garden City estate, which has over 900 residents. Hatton Grove House is a residential care home, and residents leave the premises daily with carers to walk up to the high street. The residents of sheltered accommodation in Bridge House are also impacted too, many of whom are wheelchair users. The clarity of the business, I think we've touched on this a little bit anyway, but clarity of the business purpose. The premises describes itself as food-led, but everything about it appears to the contrary. There is a VIP area. For New Year's Eve, they advertised a DJ, alcohol in return for a ticket, and finger food. During the temporary licensing, only snacks were served, which I find odd for a restaurant. Obviously, the police have raised the concerns around vertical drinking and actually appearing as a nightclub. And I noticed on the Friends of the Garden City and West Drayton estate, they talked about the venue having a lovely disco area. In relation to the Friends of the Garden estate, somebody mentioned about a petition. Firstly, that petition hasn't been admitted as evidence, and secondly, it is actually not an accurate position because it talks about how we are objecting to the sale of alcohol. So those 110 signatures are actually petitioning against something that isn't the case. So the outside area to the left of the building, the garden area, is in direct proximity to the house next door. Given that there isn't a designated smoking area for cigarettes, there's a risk of people congregating and making noise. A resident, Appendix 6C, already commented on the level of noise on December 5th when there was a trial weekend, and Appendix 6G specifically calls out concerns. There should also be a clear and present notice in public areas about leaving the premises quietly. This may be in the works, but certainly isn't in the case at the moment. We did have a complaint. Unfortunately, we're not allowed to submit it, but there was a complaint about this yesterday. Prevention of crime and disorder. The duty of licence holders is to ensure that our own customers do not contribute to crime and disorder in the vicinity. This area of West Drayton already has issues when the premises was a cafe. Of course, this is a new offering with new owners, but there are concerns that the same people will be attracted to the new venue. The absence of guaranteed security, particularly at night, feels that they are not fulfilling their duties. I provided a more accurate picture of crime specifically on and around Column Mill Road, Appendix 13. The previous submission, 10M, failed to draw attention to the specific incidents on Column Mill Road where there was evidence of antisocial behaviour and one sexual assault. In addition, a resident of Column Mill Road, Appendix 6T, has already shared issues that they have with the pubs across the road. Public safety. This is a large issue here. The applicant has confirmed there are 110 people using the venue. There is only one staircase from upstairs, and the side exit, which has been identified as a fire exit, has insufficient space as a means of escape. It's also blocked by one car, and there is a 2,000-litre wheelie bin. Whilst I appreciate that the low-hanging decorations add beautifully to the ambience, I question whether they are fire retardant and to me represent a huge fire risk. The video on TikTok shows a live flame being carried throughout the restaurant. I know we can't talk about shishas, but again, might have some concerns around that. The shisha bar is not a separate restaurant, and how would the retracted roof work with the late night opening, as that would have an impact on local residents? So in summary, I'd like to confirm that we've had at least 10 recorded incidents of parking violations which have been captured despite the applicant being aware of the parking issues. We've had 35 comments from residents of the Garden City estate. Only 11 of those are objecting outright to the licence, and none of that objection is related to alcohol. And we've had 3 comments from local councillors and 1 from the local MP. If I may, Penny, I would just also like to add, based on your lovely report that you put together, I feel that there's still some outstanding matters around welfare and vulnerability. There hasn't been any consideration to the reduction of the licensing hours. And whilst there is no intention of running the disco or nightclub, there's not adjustments in the licence to reflect this. I'm sure the police would be able to advise what needs to be done. And no adjustments to the parking issues. As we've discussed, the applicant doesn't actually even know how many parking spaces there are. It feels that this might be addressed through the 7 parking spaces, but this still feels very insufficient for a capacity of 110 and could have a direct impact on public nuisance.
Thank you very much. Thank you for a comprehensive report there, and really good to hear from the residents. So thank you for putting their views through very eloquently. Councillor Sweeting, would you like to speak next as you're up and you're both together? Thank you.
Before I start, I'd like to make a couple of points. There was a site meeting at the restaurant that myself, the chair of the Residents Association and the vice chair, and I did share my contact details with the restaurant. So we have tried to sort of make that contact. Also, I would say that it seemed to me that I was the one that was a catalyst that enabled the premises to think about a licence. I live on the Garden City estate, and driving past, I could see there was a completion coming up. And so I put in a member's inquiry saying, has a licence application been submitted? Only to be told by the officer that no. And then it was only then, I believe, that there was contact made. So there is the issue of the very late submission of the licence, which has meant that we were going through these 21 days when it was a temporary licence arrangement, where the council and the police could not sort of object in any way, because with a new establishment there were no prior concerns. So it was beyond the capability of either organisation to say no to that. So, and because it sort of unravelled, because the last temporary licence finished on the 28th of December, there was then the what are we going to do about New Year's Eve? And I was actually aware at the time, and it was me putting in another query saying, what's happening about New Year's Eve? Will they be able to serve alcohol? So there's been that sort of background to it. So that's before I start. Well, I'm the councillors of the licensing subcommittee and officers. I speak as an interested party, living on the Garden City estate, as well as being a local West Drayton councillor, who has received many messages from my residents, the last one coming to me only yesterday, which has also been a complaint to the council from that resident on noise issue. And this resident lives even closer than the resident that said all was well. So there's a contradiction there. I know I'm not able to speak about that, but there is a reference number that the committee can look at, and that was not a member's inquiry, but actually a complaint from a resident of Column Mill Road. So I've had many comments received from messages from my residents concerning the Mandala Restaurant and Lounge during its construction and the events leading up to the licence application and to date. So my comments to you are a mixture of the views expressed by residents and my own observations driving past the location daily. So I've seen it emerging out of some rubble, really. You will see by the number of submissions that this application has generated considerable local concern due to the impact on the lives of residents. And although there's been no formal complaints as such through a member's inquiry, I think this has been because there's been a lack of sort of capacity going in throughout December on the people using the facility. So I hope the committee will take seriously this level of local concern and not be influenced by the recent flurry of expressions of support generated from recent diners who submitted support by being given false reasons why alcohol could not be served currently, and those vast majority of those people were not locals. I will be commenting on the 4 licensing issues in turn and then sharing with the subcommittee other relevant information which I hope will help to inform deliberations. I will conclude by providing suggested recommendations. So first of all, prevention of crime and disorder. We've had the letter from the Metropolitan Police dated the 23rd of December, and many of the issues have been supposedly resolved, but we've still really not had the resolution about hours of operation. We've been pussyfooting around it really, and we've been having discussions through this debate about the reductions on a Sunday, etc. But just consider 110 capacity with a finish date of 2 p.m. spilling out into a narrow entrance to an estate of 1,000 people. And I rest my case on that. There is absolutely no certainty within the licence application that the venue will not be used predominantly as a bar. There just isn't. If you go there, you can see it could all be used as a bar. Although recent evidence submitted by the applicant suggests that the 50% open ventilation in respect to the shisha bar could now be met with the opening of the front windows and roof, have you seen where that location is? It's right abutting the pavement. This is neither legal nor feasible due to the facility being next to the public footpath and family housing, with a combination of extended open hours. The issue of noise coming from this establishment with the windows and roof being open has not been considered a problem by the applicant. It's basically saying there's not going to be any live music, therefore there won't be any problem. Sorry, there's already a problem. Last Friday night, there was a problem, and residents have reported that problem to me. Already there are complaints from neighbours that there was a very loud noise coming from Mandala last Friday, so loud that complaints have appeared on Facebook and have been reported to the council. That I can't include it in the evidence, with neighbours not being able to sleep. The building close to the road has no real acoustic barriers, it would seem, as it was created originally from an outside seating area. Also, the small outside area immediately next to 13 Column Mill Road with an outside seating for shisha has already generated noise complaints by the immediate neighbour, and that has a potential for antisocial behaviour. These late hours of 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. have the potential to be a magnet for disorder and disturbance in the nearby Station Road, which has had much antisocial behaviour, including a fatal stabbing, and only yesterday we had a report from the police of an incident of great concern. Late information provided by the applicant on crime rates in the area do not correspond to the evidence provided by the ward's Safer Neighbourhood team. The area has had increased incidences of crime and antisocial behaviour, and this has seriously affected the confidence of residents walking in this area at night. The extended opening hours will be a problem and will increase the likelihood of crime and disorder. The only other premises in the area whose opening hours are similar, I would contend, is the De Burgh Arms in Useley. However, this establishment is not within metres of family homes. The location of Mandala is not in the high street, as are all the other venues selling alcohol, as in the report. There's nowhere else that in next to family accommodation. And the entrance is to an estate with 450 plus family houses and over 1,000 plus residents. It also has a sheltered housing facility for some 38 residents in Bridge House who have reported to me the concerns about blocked pavement. A facility for disabled adults in Hatton Grove, and 2 facilities for vulnerable adults and young people in Fraser Avenue. The site already has a history of crime-related activities. We know it's not the same people, but there is a very close link, I think, with that particular property. And if this facility becomes predominantly a drinking establishment and a shisha bar operating for hundreds of days a year into the small hours, it is likely to be a hub for further disturbance. I come to point 2, prevention of public nuisance. This business has never tried to be a good neighbour. Full stop. Although this business has only been open since early December, it has already delivered public nuisance. It was a public nuisance during the very long construction period, with vehicles constantly blocking the pavement. And this pattern of antisocial behaviour and complete disregard for the safety of pedestrians continues. The other piece of evidence that I'm not allowed to provides the fact that there was a complete blockage of the road by a very large Rolls-Royce car. The 3 parking bays have not the depth, they have not got the depth to accommodate bigger cars. Now, if we had this problem, and we have this problem in one of the roads that in my ward, I have had reports going to the council saying the car at number X, whatever road, is abutting the pavement and blocking. And this is the same situation here. And by the way, the planning application is for only 3 spaces, not 4. It's morphed into 4, but if you look at the planning application, it's 3. Right, then we've got the residents that have approached the management asking for cars to be removed. They have been confronted with abuse using the F word, and we have more than one witness to attest to this. When a cafe, this facility caused problems, hence the erection of the bollards, and they were put in by an urgent request to the cabinet member, Councillor Riley, from me, because we were having all sorts of problems with cars being parked on the pavement there. We also have had a number of enhanced traffic patrols, but the problem still persists. It's an unsafe situation. Having those parking spaces there is going to be a continual problem. You're going to have parking people putting tickets on cars because the capacity that you've got there is just not suitable. Now we come, excuse me, to the proposed overflow car park for 7 cars. Sorry, I am sniggering now. Not only is this area already occupied, as the visit by officers can confirm, but its very presence will deliver a public nuisance. Cars going into and more importantly driving out from this obscured entrance between the mosque and the buildings will be dangerous, as already cars speed around the corner into the Garden City from Station Road. If you know that junction, you know it yourself. You're on Station Road, you sweep round, and then you're going to be confronted with this entrance to these 7-car parking facilities. So the proposal for extra parking at this venue is a mere sticking plaster to resolve an issue which is beyond resolution. They are planning to have 110 plus patrons, which could, at worst, result in up to 50 cars. Nowhere in the applicant licence submission has there been any thought given to preventing public nuisance. It's there all the time in the submissions from residents. No reduction of hours is proposed. Well, we might have a little bit of reduction, but it's still 2 p.m. on all of those other days. We also have the late submission for the shisha bar. That came as a complete surprise. That was a rabbit out of the hat, which has all the elements needed for it to deliver public nuisance. It's completely open-sided to the eating areas. It is close to pavement and family homes. Moreover, we have evidence of noise creating nuisance even before the business is up and running to full capacity. I mean, it's just starting out. I mean, the temporary notices run up to Christmas show that. It's just starting. Nothing to make residents feel that public nuisance will not continue. Nowhere is there any indications of regulations on numbers allowed to drink and not needing to eat. It just seems to be an open house for drinkers, or could be, with noise being a mere minor issue, not needing any consideration. I mean, there was complaints about the noise from last Friday from more than one resident. One further piece of evidence that suggests there will be public nuisance can be seen in the posts which have been appearing on social media accounts, which are inferring parties and dancing and a VIP area, which is sometimes associated with nightclubs. Protection of children. If this premises morphs rapidly into a mainly drinking establishment, with the ground floor being used to view the large TV and to partake in the shisha bar, it will attract drinkers of all ages. Indeed, it's likely to be a magnet for underage drinkers, as its appearance could be likened to a nightclub. By the way, have the members of the subcommittee visited at lighting up time? It is certainly a Las Vegas experience, with its lights able to be seen from the Elizabeth Line station next door, and shedding excessive light pollution to the neighbouring properties. We've really said nothing about that. The licensing objectives as expressed in the licence application give limited weight to the need for enhanced security to ensure no underage drinking and no overcapacity of the building once turning out time at other venues has taken place. This issue was raised at a site meeting I attended with the licensing officer when assurances were made as to enhanced security, which has not been confirmed within the licensing application. Excuse me. Public safety. This site was not functioning safely and with a concern for public as a cafe, as it became a facility solely populated by males and avoided by women. There were reports around all sorts of activities, drug dealing, crime and immigration issues. The venue was raided by the Home Office at least once. It continually flouted safe parking rules, blocking the pavement, resulting in the emergency erection of bollards, which I've already mentioned, and additional parking patrols. Even though we have been advised that the ownership of the premises has changed, the same issues persist. They still flout with seeming impunity public safety rules, as can be evidenced by the fact that even though the applicant has been privy to complaints about cars blocking the pavement, the problem continues, with the latest tranche of photos showing service as usual. The junction of Station Road and Column Mill Road is a busy one, with a well-attended mosque on the side opposite to Mandala. It is the bottleneck, sole entrance to the whole estate. It is often blocked by traffic and emergency vehicles are impeded. The need for these vehicles is high, with the estate having very many vulnerable residents. So public safety is a definite issue of concern. So those are my comments on the four areas. But I have other issues. They have been mentioned, and one is fire safety. We are told there's been an inspection of the premises. We would suggest that that report needs to be submitted to the committee in full, about evacuation procedures, assembly points, all of these things. Also, the Equalities Act 2010. I'm a blue badge holder, and I looked at the toilet on the ground floor, which has a step up. Now, I don't know of any new premises that has a toilet facility that is not wheelchair friendly. It might have the width to enable a wheelchair to go through, but it's got stepped access. I don't know about the toilet on the first floor. When we looked, I was not able to get upstairs, but it surely should require a lobby. And then I don't know about the food hygiene reports, whether there are any, but basically I'm asking, is the building compliant with all building regulations? I don't know whether that's happened or not. I don't know whether the inspection was done by the council or by a private company. It would be good to know that. So I come to my recommendations, if I may, subcommittee. I'm afraid that there are so many issues with this licence that I don't think I would recommending it to be approved until these issues of concern are addressed. Noise alone means it is causing a public nuisance, and that needs to be addressed. If a licence is awarded today or at a future date, can it be awarded for a trial period of, say, 3 or maybe 6 months, in order to establish that the venue creates no additional crime or disorder, no longer generates public nuisance, and does not compromise public safety? That the licence, if awarded, restricts hours to 11 p.m. and to midnight on weekends and holidays. That the parking bays are removed totally, as they create a hazard, and barriers are erected to prevent parking in that area. That the venue of the shisha bar, I know, which is not part of all of this, is inspected and declared legal before being allowed to operate permanently. That no outside seating to the left of the building is permitted. That a full fire inspection takes place to ensure public safety. That the licence permits only small numbers of clients not requiring food. That the toilet meets legal requirements, and that acoustic music is not allowed, and no music beyond 11 p.m. If this is not explicitly stated on the licence, we run the risk that the premises might morph into a nightclub. Finally, the evidence of building control sign-off is provided to the council. However, in conclusion, the residents of West Drayton are in support of new business, as am I, and Hillingdon Council. I have been a councillor for West Drayton for many years and a resident for many years, and I have frequented all of the many establishments in the High Street and have welcomed them. However, business should not create issues which affect family life and cause harm. Unfortunately, all through the 2 3/4 years of construction and now the opening, it is doing just that. Residents want it to be welcoming, so please be a good neighbour and not a bad one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeting, for your in-depth report there. I'm just going to ask the subcommittee if you have any questions for Councillor Sweeting and also Alison Roper as well. So, Alison, if there are any questions, we'll ask you to come up if that's okay. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeting. As always, very detailed. A couple of questions. So part of your ME process, some of the questions which you've raised I know are not licensable activities covered under this, but I want to just get clarity in my head. Have you encouraged your residents to start a petition for parking management schemes within the area to help prevent this?
There is a parking management scheme throughout the Garden City.
Yeah.
It affects Hatton Grove, Humber Close, Wearside Gardens has its own arrangements, but Column Mill Road has its own arrangements of parking management, and so does Fraser Avenue.
Yep.
It stops as it goes into Lawn Avenue, which
Okay.
is quite a distance away.
Yep.
So all of the roads abutting, apart from the special circumstances of Wearside, which is A2 Dominion responsible, and
Yep.
therefore they're responsible for parking and lighting and the road surface. But all of the other roads have got parking management schemes.
Okay. I'll leave it there, Chairman. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any further questions? Yes, Councillor Lakmana.
You mentioned that the resident who lives opposite, had put in a complaint. For clarity purposes, Chair, can we find out if this is the same person that was supporting Mandala, had sent in a letter of support?
So just so that I can just understand that, we're just, what you're saying is it the same person that sent in the letter of support and the letter that's not supported? I don't think it would be, but hold on a minute. Let me just check legally.
You are correct.
Isn't it? Oh, sometimes that mic. I can confirm that it is not the same person.
Thank you.
Any further questions? No? Okay. On no particular order, I'm going to go through our list that I have here. So next on the list is Janet Duncan. Janet Duncan, can we invite you up, please? Thank you. Thank you, welcome.
Thank you very much, everyone. I won't take very long because most of the points have been covered and I don't want to repeat them. But
sorry, I'm so sorry. I'm just going to stop you there. Just legally, we're just not quite sure whether the representation came in. So I've got it down on here, but I think we just need to check. I've got...
No, you're not going to be allowed.
I believe it did.
So you can tell me.
Her name's there, so I believe it would be.
We're just going to double check.
But you just have to confirmation
Always
that she's given a
better to be
representation.
Yeah.
Janet Gard.
sorry, I was speaking for Kim Widgington, who did put in a representation, and she has put in a text to say that she'd like me to speak on her behalf because she can't be here. But
that has been very helpful because that's clear now. So thank you so much for clearing that. I only had your name down here, you see, Janet, so I didn't have that you were actually speaking for someone. So
yeah.
I really appreciate that. We won't have to confirm that. That's absolutely okay. So you've got the floor now.
Right. Well, I won't take very long. Just a point that Jan Sweeting raised. This establishment is different from the other establishments in that it faces a residential road. It's actually in a residential road. Its frontage is onto a residential road. All the other properties referred to face onto the high street. And so it's that much closer to residential properties and family residential properties as well. So I just wanted to make that point, and the fact that the pavement that we've been talking about, this blockage of the pavement, is so narrow, it's just wide enough for a buggy or a wheelchair. There are wheelchair users, as has been pointed out from various establishments, and also that we do have ambulance, quite a few ambulance visits and call-outs too. So I think that's why there's been that level of concern. I think all the other points have been very adequately covered by Jan Sweeting and also Alison Roper. So thank you. I just wanted to make those other 2 points. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Has anyone got any questions? Yeah, don't disappear just yet. Councillor Davis.
Very quickly, can I just confirm that from your guys' expertise, because you're local, was this area not a car showroom at some point? So there was cars on the pavement?
Well, no, it was a very modest car showroom run by two brothers, a small family business.
Yeah.
And they did have some parking space opposite, which I think may be the parking space that's been referred to. But that was another point I wanted to ask the committee if they could just check that we're not double counting the parking that's been referred to, because there was an application to put some porter-cabin office buildings with parking for those porter-cabins, so we don't want to double count that space. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
there may be agreement that they could use it, and maybe that would apply more in the evening when office staff have gone home. But if it's going to be 11 in the morning till later at night, that's a bit different.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I just add a little bit to that? And of course, when the car showroom was there, the site wasn't as developed as it is now.
No.
Any further questions? Okay, we have Alan and Lorraine Clark, local residents. I do apologise for keeping you waiting very patiently. Thank you.
Right, as a local resident, I've actually visited Mandala, had a wonderful meal, very good service, and it is a beautifully decorated place. There's no doubt in my mind that its presence is a very attractive cocktail bar / nightclub in the way it's set up. I was offered and did go on a tour around the facility, and I have quite a number of concerns on public safety from that short tour. One of the key things I noticed that there was no fire alarm panel, no fire alarm repeater panel, no fire alarm break glass units at the doors. There were no heat head detection in the cooking area. Didn't see any fire suppression system for the extractor. There was no evidence of any firefighting equipment. There were no fire exit signs or fire way exit signs. There were no illuminated fire exit signs or any fire exit route signage. There was obviously around the whole facility a lot of plastic decoration, which I consider to be quite a high fire risk, and I don't know whether that's been covered in their fire risk assessment. There are obviously two parts to the building. You've got the restaurant area and you've got the shisha bar area. There's only a glass door separating those two areas. So from a fire perspective, there's no fire barrier, nothing to prevent one transmitting into the other. The fire exit looks quite small, considering there's 47 people above. I didn't see any fire certificate displayed. One of the obvious things when you look into the shisha bar area is coming out of the fire exit there are 2,000 litre bins in the way, and there are cars parking in the way. So one of the main concerns I have on this is certainly the fire risk assessment doesn't seem to take into account there's 110 people capacity in this building, and it really should be designed to a category L2 fire system. That's what I would expect to see. All you have, the only means of detection that I observed was smoke heads, which you'd have in a domestic situation, not in an open restaurant with 110 people. Clearly, in the event of a fire, there would be quite a calamity trying to come down the staircase and exit, especially if there is a lot of smoke, which there typically is with a fire like when fires do break out, especially when you consider how much there is to burn with all of these decorations that don't seem to be been taken into account. One of the next things I want to just touch on was that when I walked into the shisha bar.
Sorry, I'm just going to stop you because I'm being a bit distracted by the applicant and the... can I just say that this is not the time for discussion or deliberation. You can talk about this when we do our discussion. Everyone does have a right to speak. It's open discussion here. I do apologise, but I want to be able to concentrate on what you're saying and I can't. So could you please refrain from hand movements? Thank you.
When I went into the shisha bar, there were a few people there, maybe having a meeting or discussion, but I also noticed some mobile heating units. I'm guessing, I can't be 100% certain, but I've seen similar types in other restaurants, that they are probably propane gas as the fuel source. And obviously being within a building structure is extremely dangerous from a fire perspective, especially the fire brigade. That's the kind of thing that they're very concerned about, because these things can explode. The other thing I looked at was health and hygiene, although as I said, I've got no complaints. The food was really, really excellent. But I didn't see any hygiene certificate displayed. I didn't see any sort of screen to the cooking presentation. There's a hot plate there. I'm not saying children would be necessarily drawn to it, but there's nothing to stop them reaching out and putting their hands on the hot plate, which is quite scary. I didn't notice if there was a grease trap for the drainage. There could be. I didn't notice it. The other thing which I found very strange is in the cooking preparation area, there was a whole rack of knives just on display, which I found very strange. Normally these things are hidden from display because you can access the area. So that is a bit of a concern. GDA requirements, I know has been covered, but I just want to really spell out the fact that there's no disabled or ambulant toilets. There is obviously not a flat floor accessing the toilet, and there are areas of other steps around the facility. There's no power-assisted doors to the entrance. There's no lift to the first floor. I mean, generally speaking, there's been zero consideration under DDA, which I find surprising that that's never been taken to task when you're considering 110 people in this facility, and I can't emphasise that enough. Environmentally, I don't think it really conforms to any of the U values that I've been used to experiencing. There's no renewable energy systems. Mostly it's heated by electric bar heaters around the perimeter to offset the loss through the glass. There is a fresh air duct on the first floor, nowhere else. I didn't see any evidence of any extract systems. One of my key concerns really is the fire risk assessment should have picked up all of these elements, and I'm just a bit surprised that it's not been picked up by building control or a fire officer, because I genuinely believe that this building should be to category L2 regulations, which all of the things that I've mentioned should be seen. So it's a huge risk to public safety as far as I can see. Just to sort of put some flesh on the bone and give terms of my background, I've been in construction for 48 years, 40 years as a project manager and operations manager delivering projects. So I'm well positioned to see what should and shouldn't be in place. In fact, one of the buildings that I oversaw and delivered was actually the Borough of Britain Visitor Centre. That was one of my projects, which I'm very proud of as a local citizen. So these are not just hopeful comments from a layman. I do consider myself to be a professional. I'm a member of the Chartered Institute of Building, so I do think it's very relevant, the comments I've made. And what I would like to see is local authority building control and fire brigade re-inspect the building, reclassify it as L2 so that all these systems can be fitted, because I do believe it's at presently unsafe.
Thank you very much for another comprehensive report from the subcommittee. Are there any questions?
Sorry, there was one other thing I wanted to add, because nobody else had touched on this, is how are deliveries managed?
How are deliveries made? Thank you.
I've seen personally our truck, 2 wheels on the curb, blocking half the road while the delivery is made. And there's no evidence been submitted today to say how they are actually carried out.
Thank you. I've taken that point on board about delivery. So we'll cover that in the discussion. So thank you for bringing that up. Right, sorry. Councillor Lakmana.
One question for Mr. Clark. You said there was a tour of the facility. Who initiated that?
It was initiated by the waiter.
Sorry, by
it was initiated by the waiter. I actually went there just to try the food. I was
Right.
curious as anybody else. And as it wasn't busy, I think there were only 4 people in the place. He invited me to have a tour.
And how long ago was that?
Oh, that was only recently, only this week.
Thank you.
And I would say the place looks fantastic. Food's great. It's a good addition. Unfortunately, it's in the wrong place.
Thank you very much indeed.
Any further questions? No? Thank you very much. We have our last local resident, Thomas Arunhammer. I think I pronounced that right. My apologies if I've incorrectly pronounced your surname.
So I'm Thomas Arnhammer and I live opposite Mandala restaurant, and some of the things that have been referred to did originate from us, that the noise complaints, and I don't really know what to touch on. From our point of view, the whole enterprise has been an ongoing nightmare of well over 2 years of disruption, disturbance and noise, to a point where our sleep patterns are being negatively affected. I would contest the assertion of the applicant that they try to reach out to the neighbourhood. We have never been informed of building procedures, schedules, noise levels. Last year they ran a generator, an external generator, which was sitting outside their front door well into the night, and it created billowing smoke that was coming across the road. We were never told about this beforehand. I went in and said, how long is this thing going to run on for? I was told, oh, we just have no other power generation, and we had to live with that. Now, I'm not a person who will complain about every wrong parked car, and I wish I had, because looking at the evidence that you have been presented, I feel I should have complained more often to make my voice being heard, and I regret that now. There has definitely been an increase in blocked parking. We can't get in and out of our drive easily on many occasions. I've been sworn at when I ask people to move their vans. What can I say? It has been a nightmare for us, and I do worry that extended licensing hours will only make that worse, to a point where we need to consider, can we continue living there? Because we need to have a good night's rest, go back to work. We're both teachers. We need to be on top of our game. I would urge licensings to be in line with fewer hours. I dread having to be there until 2 in the morning and wait for the noise to subside. It's, yeah. So.
Thank you very much, and thank you for sharing your views as well. It's really important that we do
Thank
listen
you.
to our residents and we do share the views. So thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Yes, Councillor Davis.
I have one brief question. I can see the pain, so I feel sorry for you. I really do. I just got some questions on when you were sworn at. Was that during the building, or has that been recently?
No, that was delivery, and it may not have been to do with Mandala. It was a delivery van that was parked opposite our drive. I asked him to move it, and he called me an idiot.
Okay. Sorry for you, Chairman. Am I right in thinking
that may have nothing to do with you? It's just I can see that the problem is not going to get better, but it needs to be addressed. I do appreciate that you spend a lot of time thinking about these potential hazards. please do take that into account.
For you, Chairman, I respect your honesty there. Thank you very much for that. So have you reached out to the venue directly as well? So when you've had these problems, have you, so I know they haven't reached out to you, have you contacted them, have you phoned them when it's happening?
I wouldn't know who to call. There are a couple of guys who I speak to. There's an Albanian called Albon. He has his own name on his car.
Yeah.
He's very friendly. I talk to him, and I do wish the venue all the best to make it a commercial success.
Yeah.
I just hope that can be done in a way that allows us to continue to live a peaceful life and have a good night's rest.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you
Thanks.
very much. Thank you, Jim.
Councillor Manor.
How close are you to the venue itself, Mandala?
We're in number 3, so that's the second half of the detached straight across. So we are, well, yeah, about 30 metres away.
Thank
So
you.
any noise they make, we are exposed to it, and I'm pleased to hear that they have no plans to have live music and music entertainment. But last Friday, that was already violated, I'm afraid.
Lovely. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Just give me 2 seconds. I'm just conscious that we've been going on for a while, that was all. I would like to continue without any comfort breaks, but I am also mindful that people may need comfort breaks. So can I just ask what the consensus is, if you're happy to continue, or would you like a 5-minute comfort break? Is everyone happy to continue? I just think while we're in the role of it, that's just my opinion. I think we're in it. Yeah. I think we can discuss that as we're coming in. So I think if you want, if you do need to go to the toilet, obviously now, then that's a. Do you see what I mean? But if you can wait, then we'll do that. So now, thank you. So now we're coming on to the discussion. So just to let you know how that's led, you please, if you have any questions, please go through the chair, myself first. These are questions around what we've just heard, taking into account the witness statements. We have had other witness statements as well, so just for those members that are on YouTube, as members of the public that are on YouTube, I think we had about 25 statements coming in, some for and some against, and we have looked at those, and we have included them in some of the questions that we will be discussing today. So I'd like to first of all go over to our ward councillors, our councillors, do apologise. And do you have any questions? Right, I thought you probably would. So Councillor Mana, ladies first.
So I have one question for the applicant, please. You said that you had engaged or invited the locals to the venue, and the gentleman that just spoke, he lives literally opposite the venue. Or was that selective residents that you had invited to the to your venue?
No, this was done by social media and by poster on our glass door. So not really go with the leaflets to the local resident. Everything was posting in the property and social media.
Right. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Davis.
Buckle up, I have a few, Chairman, thank you. Can I just, first question first to the licensing officer. Have we had no antisocial behaviour claims, no reports, no noise abatement, anything during the TENS period?
No, nothing. I had an email from the manager from the EP team, noise team, 7th of Jan, saying no reports, nothing on the system in relation to Mandala.
Okay. Through you, Chairman. Can I also confirm, what was the date of the last temporary event notice? When did it expire? I don't know. 28th of December. Perfect. So, through you, Chairman, again, the gentleman who lives opposite has raised that there was music at the premises last Friday. So how did that happen without a temporary event notice?
So I want to point that. So last Friday we have no music. We have 75 birthday happen in our glass room, so was around 20 people, okay, maybe no, 15 people on the end, and this was 75 years lady birthday, and only one note and music they can give is happy birthday to her, and I believe the lady can confirm with all the guests around, and they left after 11, so we finished all the service before 11, but they still sitting there, and I'm pretty sure everyone can confirm that was not music. Day after, we have officers from council bring letter for music complaints, but obviously when they enter to the property was zero music in the property, and then also entered before 11.
So, sorry for you, Chairman. So just to confirm that you received an FPN, so a note or a warning notice from the noise abatement team?
Just was handing just a letter, we have a complaint for music. When they see it's not music, I said, can you hear any music? They stood only this guest, and they said, we have yesterday. I said, this is even more funny, because yesterday we have only the 75 years birthday, and this was local resident live in the road.
So thank you. For you, Chairman, licensing, can we get that checked? Because I'm assuming that in order for us to issue, I've been out with this team, in order for us to issue a sound notice or a warning notice, there would have had to be an attendance, and that's not in the report. So I really query the data that we're receiving. So can we just get that checked somewhere? Look, it's been announced that they've received the notice. I've been out with that team recently. They would have physically had to show up outside to get that. I know they wouldn't have maybe gone into the venue at night. They don't operate like that. But can we get some clarity on that from someone, please?
I'm just thinking I might not be able to do that because I know that they have an out-of-office telephone number. So it may not come through a main switchboard. They may not have a reference number. So it may not be actually logged somewhere unless I can physically speak to the manager. I'm not 100% on that, but I think it may not be documented, as in like an ME has come in and it's got a reference number.
Okay, sorry for you, Chairman, can I ask that, Chairman, that you look at this going forward? Because if this noise abatement has gone on, we've not got a full picture. And I know I've been out with that team, so it would have had to have come in from a call from a resident that there was a noise disturbance in order for someone to attend. They wouldn't have approached the venue at night. They would have written to them or issued it the next day. So
yeah, I completely agree with you, and I think what we need to do is just get clarification of what we have in the pack, because that should be in the pack, and that's what we're going by.
Yeah.
It's what we have in the pack at the time as well, so it's what we've got here. If it isn't included in that pack, we need to ask the question why, but we would hope that everything is inclusive in this, as what we have here. So we have to make the decision today on what we have here.
Yeah,
but absolutely, I will certainly take that away, but
Chairman,
we do have to make the decision.
I have two more questions on that. I do apologise. Parking. So you say you have 10/11 bays open to interpretation. How many of them bays do you allow your staff to park in?
3.
So your parking number is reduced by 3 bays outside. Okay. If this committee was minded to issue a licence, would you take on the recommendations from the residents of a no parking?
I believe removing the parking is not going to change any traffic. Actually, can reduce, because if you have no 3 parking space, whatever is outside the restaurant, we're gonna not stop people come by car. They will gonna still drive by car, and they're gonna try to find another parking location. So most likely they're gonna look for the payment situation. I don't think that's gonna solve any problem.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And my final question, Chairman, is to the applicant again. During the temporary event notice, it was raised that you were only serving snacks. Is there a reason why? Just want to get clarity. Did you have problems with your kitchen, or did you have a full menu?
Sorry, can you just repeat?
So during your temporary event notice that you had in place, you wasn't actually serving food. You were only serving snacks, not a full menu.
No, that's not true at all.
Okay, so I've seen that there's a menu online. I've already checked that, so I can
that
see
is menu. We have no menu online before because we was on soft opening, so we was working on the menu, so we didn't show online because you have to prepare the menu to perfection to give to the people.
Yeah. Happy to give way there, Chairman, to let some more questions, and I'll come back with.
Councillor Lamana.
One further question to the applicant. You've heard from the residents about their concerns about the disabled toilet facilities. What are your views on that?
So how I mentioned before, we was not thinking about it. When I came, I was not really thinking about it till I have the first disabled customer in our restaurant, and this was gentleman on wheelchair. Next day, I got the ramp, whatever is the step to the toilet. It's true. We managed that day. It's not a big step. We managed that day to this gentleman to help to go to the toilet. Next day, I have already ramp buying in our property to help to easy access to the toilet, and they can use the ladies' toilets, which for wheelchair is definitely accessible.
I think what she's asking is, are you putting it right? Are you fixing this lip that they're complaining about?
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yes.
I don't know if that helps.
Councillor Davis.
Sorry, Chairman. I've got pages that I could go through, but I won't. Something stuck in my mind from the ward councillor. It's not in the pack, but I'm hoping because the way the pack's printed. There was a police incident or a serious police incident that was mentioned. So it's given. Is there any Penny or Dave? Are you able to give us any update on that? Look, if it had any relation to this business, so do we need to review that? I'm just thinking if it happened late last night, it may not have been included in the evidence before us.
I have no knowledge of what may have happened yesterday. I can say we do an overnight search every morning, so we've done a search this morning for things that pop up for licensed premises for the whole of Hillingdon. It is easy to miss things, so I apologise if I have, but we have no knowledge of what this incident may be. I'm happy to look it up if I have some more details, like potentially the location, a specific location, but I'm not aware of anything from last night.
Okay, so through you, Chairman, if I may. So just for clarity, look, it was nothing addressed with a licensed premises because that would show up on your report.
It should do, yes, yes, so nothing seen.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Marner.
Chair, I saw the applicant putting her hand up. Would she have any detail about the incident? Thank you.
About yesterday, I just want to say Mandala was closed. We was not operate yesterday at all. So the noise came definitely not from our property. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a few questions, and again, just to clarify, it is what's in the pack, so it's what we've got here. Right, just a few things I just want to discuss around. So prevention is the biggest thing, isn't it? When we're in a licensing, it's prevention, right? What are we looking at now that might create an issue going forward? So, do you have a parking strategy in place and a policy, and would you be prepared to put one together as a condition? That's my first question.
Yes, you would, yes.
Okay, my second question is bringing up what a member of our public said about the fire risk and safety. Would you be able to bring that to our awareness, just so that we can go through again some bits and pieces? So things like the door and.
We're in the process. This is all news to us. I don't think this is in the documents. It shouldn't have been admitted in my submission, but whatever. Since it's been raised, we're in the business right now amongst us with text and what have you of recommissioning our fire risk assessment. Okay, thank you.
Brilliant. And that's what we want to hear, it's like that going forward. Okay, secondly, I do apologise because sometimes it gets very confusing when you're looking at documentation. So I'm still not completely sure about the dining. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions. How many chefs do you have?
So 2 chefs at the moment, plus 2 helpers.
Okay, so 2 chefs plus 2 helpers. To promote dining and for us to gain an understanding, again, is your bookings done online? Is there like an online booking system that people go online to book? How do you get your clientele?
Yes, so we're going to have online booking system. We're going to have a booking code also outside of the restaurant.
Fantastic. And this is a question for our licensing. In normal circumstances, I know it's very difficult to say normal, but a general dining area, I must admit, for me, having 2 seaters at a table I would say is unusual, because normally, you usually have 4 people, don't you? Well, I don't know, but you might do. You might have a family. I'm just conscious that there's a lot of 2-seaters here on the plan for down below and upstairs. So I didn't know so if you were to say, okay, we need to create more of a dining area, we need to definitely say this is the dining area, the lower area is the dining area as well as the top. Would we expect some written recommendations on that, around how we could have that? Because I'm just very concerned that on both top and bottom level, we've got 1 table and 2 seats. So,
Shall I answer this? So, I don't think that this is not like off here. So, we have mostly 4 people here, everywhere. When I asked the fire officer, I said, this is just to understand people where the tables are. It's not on the plan matter if it's 4 or 2.
Okay, I'm going to just state again, we can only go by what's in the pack.
Okay.
And the pack shows very clearly the areas. Would
Yes,
you be
ma'am.
willing to look at that and work
Of
towards
course we are. The purpose of the licensing plan is basically a schematic. Okay? Tables for 2 you push together to make tables for 4. Okay? There is an overarching fire risk assessment plan that actually has got the tables on, precisely measured and what have you. This is a schematic, man, with some red lines on to show the licensing authority where specific licensing activities will take place within the building. Okay? There is no requirement for this plan even to be drawn by professionals, believe it or not, although we do employ a professional to do them. Thank you.
I understand that, but it just helps us again gain an understanding of where we are and what the actual dining area is looking like. The other question, is it 4 toilets you have or 2? 2. 3.
3 toilets.
3. So it's the one on the side on the map. We've got 1 on the side and then 2 forward. Is that right? Like on here, we've got 1 over
yes,
here.
Yes, and 2 on the top of the stairs, upstairs.
Right. Okay. Again, I do apologise. I'm just trying to get an idea for you. On the garden area, what is that being used for? Is it being used, and what is it being used for currently?
It's not being used at the moment, and we planning to be used as a garden for the customers. Sorry.
That's okay. And how many people can you fit in the garden? Well, is there a restriction number? I don't want to say how many people can you fit in the garden. Is there a restricted number of people you would say would use the garden? If you're using this garden, I'm aware of noise, I'm aware of obviously people have been drinking, there could be quite a bit of activity going on in the garden if we're looking at late at night. So I think 2 questions really. One is the restricted number of people in the garden, but also how would you manage that? So again, it's about the prevention policy. What prevention policies are in place?
So we don't planning have garden open to late night, that is first of all. So I believe up to 10 o'clock in the evening. So mostly when summer, people like to be outside, and I believe that is a very nice area to be. But not because it's residential area, obviously not after 10.
Thank you. Training. So I'm always again about prevention. Can you just tell me how many staff have you got? I think it was 5. Was it 5? 6, sorry. And have they been trained? What do they understand about, the training area? It's always good, obviously, to get staff trained. And the other question is, are you there all the time? What's your hours? Are you there every day? And if you're not, who would take over when you're not there?
Yes, we train our staff. We're using professional companies, so they are health and safety and HR. It's one in the same company. The lady is called Umayma. So yes, we're using for our staff training and health and safety.
So, and who would take over if you weren't there? So say if you were off sick at any time, who's your next in line?
So at the moment, it's only me for 6 days, whatever, I'm every day there. I don't leave my work, but then we're going to have another, probably going to be the owner, Halim.
Okay, I mean, obviously we can only do recommendations here, but we would recommend a second person with you. That's really for your safety.
Of course.
Because if anything happens in there and there is an incident, it's obviously very difficult for yourself just to deal with this.
That's
so I know we've covered it SIA, but I'm talking about 6 days a week, all the time.
It's just happening at the moment because he's in the owner is in the time of to doing his licensing, so he needs to finish everything to cover me.
So what I'm hearing from that is you have got someone that you're going to put in place that will be trained and will be there with you, and also when you're not there, they will also be there.
That's right, yes.
So can I just agree some of the conditions that we've been speaking about? We mentioned 30 minutes drinking up time, so I just want to be very clear. I'm still very conscious about, so we mentioned that, we've mentioned providing the fire risk, we've mentioned about obviously public safety, we've mentioned about training courses, the garden area we've mentioned, and about restriction. Yeah, I'll come to you, absolutely. While I'm in the flow, I just want to make sure I remember everything. The last orders and last food orders. Can you just remind me what time the last food orders were? Sorry, it's only because I've just...
There is no restriction on the last food orders, it's the alcohol. It's the sale of the alcohol, and we're looking at half an hour before the terminal hour. Now look, I think we've been somewhat overtaken by events, because can you just let me have a go on maybe up? Right,
that's what we've been here for a discussion.
No one.
So.
I mean, we looked at it. Sorry, we didn't look at each other, but I picked up in the room that no one could have been unaffected by Mr. Orenhammer's testimony, and we've immediately like to make the offer to Sunday to Thursday, 11 till 11, Friday and Saturday, 11 till 1, with all the police caveats about last hours. Forget the 2 o'clock, because his testimony was overwhelming, frankly. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, and that really helps actually, because that was going to be my next question.
So what was Friday to Saturday again?
It's a 1 o'clock. But it's got the half an hour drinking up time, and nobody coming in and nobody entering in.
Thank you.
I think as well it's very difficult to work out what's going to happen in the future, because obviously you haven't been open long enough, right? So I think we do have to take that in mind. And I do also take the concern of residents as well, that, would it be possible to have 6 months and then come back and just check? Because, would that be acceptable for you?
There's no facility to do. There is the lawyer will say
yeah. I thought I'd just ask.
If you sit on the LGA licensing panel, you probably do. Would you mind having a word with them? Because that is a very good, like learner plates on a license.
I know. But we like to ask anyway, because, again, this is about discussions, so this is coming in here.
We'll be back in 6 months to discuss all the same things about parking, which isn't even...
Brilliant, thank you. That's really good to hear, thank you. Right, okay. I think that's probably it, but I'm probably sure I might have a few more as we go around, so I know. I just want to make sure it's tightened. Right, Councillor Davis.
Thank you. Can I just confirm that you guys will be open to a delivery management plan as well, so we don't have these issues?
That's a very wise suggestion, that is. Thank you very much indeed, Councillor.
Yeah, and can I also just add that even if we did put a 6-month licence in place, these guys could just apply for temporary event notices and supersede anything that we'd already agreed. So you could continue as you are, and for the residents, there'd be no conditions. So it's safer for us to decide in this room now a long-term agreement than a short-term fix, because the last thing you guys want is someone with no conditions operating. Okay, I just want to make that clear, that it's better for it to be decided here now. Okay, and also, sorry, through you, Chairman, I couldn't see a CCTV plan in there. Are you open to a CCTV plan? I may have missed that.
Yeah, it's absolutely condition 1 of general.
It's been a long morning.
On page 34. It's okay.
It's been a long morning.
It's a long morning as well.
Thank you. How would it... I will ask the question. I know I'm most probably going to get told off, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How would it affect your business if it was waiter-only service?
So actually affected already. So wherever we could finish the license, people come back like 10.
Short. Can you answer him shortly?
Okay, we're gonna affect our business quite hardly.
So if there was a condition that it was table service only, was that a good thing for you or a bad thing for you?
No, table service is okay.
So you'd be open for it.
You're
Okay.
talking about the table service of food. Obviously, the table service of drinks is a completely different matter.
That's what I'm leaning towards that.
Right. Okay. Can you talk to him about whether you're prepared to accept table service of food and drink, or just food or drink?
So we have these 6 people sitting for waiting area, so they can have a drinks obviously on the waiting time for the tables. This is the plan how we made it. It's not for people to come and drink and go drunk. This is what we even not offer. We always say we actually prefer to get service alcohol within the meal.
Okay. So just so if we were to put a condition in that all alcoholic beverages had to be served to people seated, would that be something you'd be open to?
What seated mean? They
so
have.
If they were sitting at the bar,
completely fine. Yes.
If they were sitting at the bar, if they were sitting at a table.
I can accept the condition.
Because I want to take away the vertical drinking element.
She's accepted it.
Perfect. Thank you. Through you, Chairman. I've lost my train. Sorry, through you, Chairman, again. So there's no live music within the venue. Do you have amplified music?
I need to help you with this. Live and recorded music only becomes licensable after 11 o'clock at night.
Yep.
Unless you have audiences of over 500.
Yep.
You cannot physically get 500 people in there.
Okay.
Okay? So they can actually have live and recorded music. It's not a licensable activity, and therefore is not before this panel, before 11 o'clock at night, between 8 in the morning and 11 o'clock at night.
Okay.
Right? What the good people, I got the flavour of all their, and I've read them, taking them very seriously, is they didn't want it turning into a nightclub and that kind of live music, entertainment kind of thingy, and that is why all live and recorded music was left off this.
Yeah,
okay.
I completely agree that. My concern behind this is amplified music. So I do not want, sorry for you, Chairman, I do not want the residents being put at risk of having TVs blaring at potentially 12:30 at night.
I'm awfully sorry, sir, but amplified music is not a licensable activity.
No, it's not, but I want to ask a question so I get an understanding of what I could be deciding on in the long run.
You see, what's not a licensable activity is background music that sets ambience. Now, going to a foreign restaurant, it is very usual to have a little bit of music going on. What is completely unacceptable is having a massive, 6-foot TV or karaoke going on in the open area that should be open for shisha. So it's a question of level and degree. I think that if a condition around background music to set ambience is fine. And were they to go beyond that, to have karaoke nights or upsetting everybody in the street, well, clearly they're going to be in breach because it's beyond background.
And that's where I was looking on this. I might not have gone around it the right way, but that is what I was trying to get at.
Okay.
Smashing. I do not want the gentleman across the road being kept awake by listening to Kids Music Channel all night.
And listening to him, we don't want that either.
Thank you. Sorry, respect, Chairman, for you. Thank you.
Councillor Marner.
Thank you. My colleague has already asked the question on CCTV, but I have 3 questions or a confirmation. One of our residents or our interested parties said that there was no fire certificate on display, and neither was the hygiene certificate on display. Is that something that was omitted, or is it something that you're going to take on board?
We do have all these fire facilities, whatever is maybe not visible, because it's actually shown to our staff, not for the customer. The design is so beautiful, so it's nothing which like the board outside. Yes, we have everything covered.
But we're going to re-audit it today, because that was very alarming and a complete surprise to us. We never saw any of that coming.
Thank you very much. And just one other question, Chair. Training records. You said your staff go through all the training. Is a training record kept of all that training undertaken?
Yes, ma'am, it's in General A, it's page 34, staff training, and it says that it will all be, their training record will be documented and kept on the premises, made available for 12 months.
So will be, you said?
Yes, it's part of the conditions.
Okay, so at the moment there's no records, is that correct?
Well, there isn't a licence at the moment, sorry. There isn't technically a licence.
No, I understand,
Right.
I understand, but there must be training.
Yes, but she's
which
already
is-
told you they've done the training, ma'am. But
Right,
as
but
concerns
there's
going
no
forward
record.
with a licence, and you want it documented training records, you've got it
Okay.
in black and white.
Thank you very much indeed.
Any further questions from Councillor?
Sorry, Chairman. This seems to be changing very drastically to becoming quite passive aggressive, and we're not here to catch you out. Okay, I do not mean that as disrespect. We are not here to catch you out. We are here to do best for your business and for the residents. Okay, so if it's come across that way, I do apologise, but we don't want it to come that way. But may I ask the applicant? Your challenge 25 policy, which I've seen in here, the recommendation for the police is to have Ask Angela. Have you already put that training into place? I know you don't have a licence at the moment, but is that training in place? Have you been proactive?
I was
That's what-
spoke about Angela, but obviously it's not put in the training yet, no.
Okay, thank you.
Would you accept it? Would you accept it?
Yes, of course, I already accepted.
Yes, she's
I already
accepted. I
accepted,
accept
yes.
that. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, yes, PC Perry Brown.
I'd just like to say, just on that point, I was going to mention it later on, but if it's relevant, we had that discussion. We gave a brief overview of what that training would entail and recommended it, and the applicant did say she'd be willing to undertake it, and we're aware, obviously, that she's already going to be keeping those training records. I did explain we haven't yet got a date for that training, and it's something she could look up online in the meantime, but it is something we do offer to licensed premise holders and DPSs. Indeed, staff at licensed premises. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Do you have any questions you would like to ask or point in the discussion?
No, we don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Licensing.
Question, point of clarity. Mr. Zell, you are the designated premises supervisor proposed, but you're not the applicant, is that right? I know you're speaking here on behalf. You're not. Are you a director of the limited company is what I'm getting? Just clarification.
No, I'm not the director, no.
Okay, so you are the proposed designated premises supervisor.
Thank you. We may have covered this, but you know we're covering so much, so I should really ask you first, but I'm just going to go straight and you can tell me whether we haven't. Did we clarify last entry time at all? Right, with that, yeah. Okay, brilliant. Right, so I am mindful, Alison Roper, you would like to say something. Do you want to come up? Thank you. Sorry you've had to wait a bit there. Oh, yes. I do apologise, Mark.
I thought I'd jump in just before she sits down. Right, I've had a couple of messages on Teams in relation to your question, Councillor, so not full detail, not a full breakdown of what happened, but bullet points. The manager of the EP team says he visited last Saturday with Jamie, who'd written them a letter about alleged complaints. So he visited between 11 o'clock and half 11 p.m. His colleague Jamie picked up the complaint on Saturday and wrote the letter immediately after speaking with the complainant about the allegation. Doesn't go into details about what the allegation is. When we arrived a few minutes before 11 p.m, music was being played within the venue. At the time, it was at a level unlikely to give rise to public or statutory nuisance. However, it was audible outside. It ceased as we entered at 11 p.m. I describe it as borderline between background and regulated entertainment. And the letter that was served was in regards to an allegation of nuisance from music. And I apologise, that's all the details I've got.
That's very helpful. Thank you very much. Right, yes, Alison.
So I just had a couple of clarification questions. So thank you to everybody who's been, my head's spinning, I don't know about anybody else's. So we talk about the garden area and saying that probably won't be used. It doesn't look very much like a garden, if I'm honest. It looks like where the bins are and stuff like that. So I think some work could be done there. But that's also identified as one of your main fire exits. So how would that work if people were congregating in that area and then there was a fire? You've got a real risk with a very narrow exit of how people would be able to get outside of that building.
This is going to work with the risk assessment company again about this.
Brilliant, thank you. So I know we keep coming back to parking, and I know Mr. Semper says it's nothing to do with it, but actually I completely disagree on this matter, because this is a public nuisance. This is also a public safety issue. So I would come back to the fact that we now have 3 parking spaces that are all used by the people who work there. So we then only have 7 parking spaces available, of which they are down a narrow alleyway. You can have cars back and forward, back and forward. I still would request that the parking is removed, because I think people have plenty of opportunities to get there, and actually, if anything, it will do wonders for your profits, because people will be able to drink. They won't have to worry about driving. The other comment I would like to make about the shisha bar, if that's going to be open after 11, I would just draw attention to the public nuisance or public safety there, because there will be noise. If it's fully open, it's directly present to accommodation right next door. If it's not open, it then becomes illegal. So that's the only 3 comments I would like to make. I don't know if you've had anything you would like to add.
Actually, we are already contacting with some architects about this, because Mr. Fire just talked with me about this 1 meter barrier, acoustic barrier behind when we fully open, so we can manage somehow.
But it's more the going upwards, it's the upward noise. That
yeah, I believe engineer can work out.
Yeah, brilliant.
That is what it is.
And
planning permission should be done.
Yeah, there's a lot of we can, we will, we might. That's probably the only other thing I would want to raise, that maybe why that hasn't been done before. But that's all I wanted to comment on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's been noted, and thank you for those important remarks. Okay, we're going to draw. I think we've had a really good discussion. I am mindful of time as well. Yes. No, because unfortunately you're not on the list, so I do apologise. We have to have prior notice that you're going to speak. It's a legal format, so it's not something that we'd put together, so I do apologise. But sadly it has to be illegal. You have to be legally. I think we've deliberated really well on this, so thank you to everyone who's taken part. I think we've had a really in-depth discussion and deliberation. What we're going to do now is we're going to have a final word. Do make it brief, because obviously I'm sure that we all... I'm sure that we do need a comfort break as well. So we will go backwards round, so we do the responsible authorities first. So, PC Penny, would you like to give a brief summary?
Thank you. Yes, I'll try and keep this very brief. I think it will be. As I said with my original verbal submission, as I say, our priority is to ensure that the conditions and the hours are appropriate and proportionate to the business, but are also robust enough to be upholding those licensing objectives, with our focus obviously being on the prevention of crime and disorder. As such, there's some things that have been discussed today which we haven't necessarily commented on, but I would like to reiterate a few things that I think are pertinent. Again, some of the things I've mentioned earlier, and that's that the conditions in the operating schedule, which have already been submitted by the applicant, and as I did mention just a moment ago, I just wanted to reiterate again that the WAVE training would form part of that training record that they keep, which will be available to them. There's also those agreed conditions which are in the appendix, with included the verbal clarification that we've had about the last entry for being 30 minutes prior to the terminal time of the sale of alcohol, not the closing time. We've also had obviously the verbal agreement of the 30 minutes drinking up time, so that reduction of the terminal time for the sale of alcohol by 30 minutes. Further discussed conditions throughout today, and points which we're pleased to have been agreed, relate to the alcohol only being served to seated patrons, and obviously the reduction of the hours for licensable activities on a Sunday being in line with the trading of Monday to Thursday, what's already put in there. So I think they're the sort of the main points that I wanted to bring to the forefront that I think are very relevant and need to be considered. Obviously, I did discuss earlier that you could consider further conditioning around trying to ensure that it's the restaurant is food led as opposed to the bar. We've already gone some way with that, I think, with the fact that there is no regular entertainment, with the alcohol being served to seated patrons and so on. Obviously, you could look at limiting the numbers of people using that bar, or potentially ensuring a more public nuisance and crime and disorder, but ensuring all doors and windows are closed after 11 p.m. just for those later hours. But that will impact on the the shisha business, obviously it wouldn't be impacting on the licensable activities. But that's something for yourselves, Chair, to consider if you feel necessary. But I think those items that I've mentioned at the start of my talk there, they are the things that I really wish to bring to the forefront of your minds and to be considered today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Licensing.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for letting me be part of the discussions and the discussions from the other side and the residents as well. It's always helpful. However, we still have our concerns in relation to the licensing objectives that I've mentioned. I still have concerns in terms of there's been chat and discussions about seating and stuff like that, but still concerns in relation to food, also dispersal, also the involvement in terms of SIA door staff monitoring, preventing public nuisance, but also crime disorder as well, and the knock-on effects potentially of the lounge area if it was open. But we still maintain our representation, Chairman.
Thank you very much. And then our interested parties, obviously, Councillor Sweeting, did you want any final closing remarks? And that includes anyone that has spoken, so anyone that is on here to speak. I mean, you might want to speak.
Very little, but it's the hours of operation, really, that are the bête noire, because I don't believe that going on until 1 o'clock in the morning, facing family housing in an area which is already a hotspot for parking problems, is going to be sort of workable. I mean, I really think there's going to be a spillage of all sorts of activities at that time. It is an unusual venue. I mean, it's a bit like the Irish person who said, you know, oh, I wouldn't start from here. I wouldn't have had a restaurant in that location. It's the wrong location. And it's been there, and it's almost morphed from one thing to another. And what it is now, and I do want a good restaurant in West Drayton, I do want it to work, but it's at the entrance to our large estate, where there's a lot of vulnerable residents living, and it's so close, within 2 metres. That garden area that we've spoken of is within 2 metres of a family house, and I've got real concerns about the exit there. You know, if you think about the 110 people that could have that capacity, and it will be very popular on those particular days. And if you've got 110 people and you have a problem, you know, with the flames in the shisha bar, etc., and they need to get out quickly, one of the exits is that garden area, which has got seating in it, and it's 2 metres from a family residence. It shouldn't really be anything other than an exit. But I come back to the issue, and I am a bit concerned that we've skirted round the towers, the hours of operation. We haven't actually really got to the nitty-gritty on this, and I'm surprised by, you know, various comments that have come. But I do think that 1 o'clock is a step too far, because it's not on the high street. The other venues that have got that turning out time are in a high street. This is not a high street situation. Anyway, I would ask the subcommittee to think very, very carefully about the issue of the fire report, and also the issue of the hours of operation. I thank you.
No, thank you very much. And also the Chair of the Garden City Residents Association. Alison, do you have any final remarks? Okay. Anyone else? That's Janet, Duncan, Thomas or Alison. Would you like to come up and use the mic? Thank you.
I think it's been a very useful discussion, and I think it's been very helpful to hear from the applicant, hear details, and I think a lot of that will provide good information and reassurance. I thank them for moving on the question of hours to 11 o'clock during the week, and that's in line with an inspector's decision on planning as referred to by Jan Sweeting on the coal yard just behind this. I noticed that they would like to continue to 1 on Friday and Saturday, but I really would ask them to consider again. Residents are happy to move that to another hour to midnight, but you yourselves have heard the testimony of the local resident, he and his family, and were moved by that, and I thank you for that, and I think we all were. So could we still keep it to 12? We want you to be successful, we want you to be a good business, but you are in unusual circumstances in that you're in a residential road, and it just imposes those concerns. So thank you everyone for that.
Thank you very much. Okay, we shall now move on to the applicant.
I honestly think, having heard everybody's concerns, there's been a fundamental misunderstanding. Okay? Because the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Act of 2022 created a statutory offence of public nuisance. It takes 3 forms: endangering the public, obstructing the public, and offensive behaviour. You okay?
Yeah.
Right. That is not the Licensing Act. What they're talking about could constitute, in extremis, offences contrary to the 2022 Act. This is the 2003 Act, which defines public nuisance not as all these things, but as the focus of the effect of licensable activities on specific premises on persons living and working in the area. That includes, and they've listed them, noise, light, noxious smells, litter. Okay? So everything else to do with parking, with respect, it's not mentioned anywhere in the Licensing Act or anywhere in the Section 182 guidance. Planning, parking, it's not relevant. It's a legitimate concern, I get it, and we've offered to try and do something about it. Okay, but there are things that people need to take up with a planning authority, with a highways authority. Okay, I tell you what, I could go on for hours explaining that. We've conceded on, we've taken an awful lot of soundings from you guys. Hopefully, the police have been by far the most useful because they, with their leadership and guidance, they've definitely started to knock this into the right direction. I thank you very much indeed for that. Thank you.
Okay, and the licence holder.
I just want to say we are restaurant. We're not nightclub. We're not pub. We will not gonna. Till now, we have no even one drunk people leave our premises, even one. So we have no any live music. We have no any DJs. So I don't understand some of these objections, but it is how it is. But I just want to say we not are nightclub. Thank you.
Thank you, and I do apologise, Mark, I left you out.
It's fine, nothing from me, Chair.
So busy as we've been going around. So, Mark?
Nothing from me, Chair, thank you.
It's all right, sorry, because it wasn't done in order. I just need to check legally that you can come up, and you can. So that's fine. Yeah.
Just one final comment about the parking. I know you keep pushing back, Mr. Semper, and say that it's not relevant, and it's not relevant in the licensing agreement. I would disagree. It's about public safety. It's about public nuisance. Now, both of those things will come under that. You can get into the semantics about it if you would like, sir. However, I would also ask that this is something that is really concerning the residents. I would imagine, as a good business and people wanting to do the right thing, that you would actually listen to these rather than argue with the objections and actually look for a solution that is going to work for your business and also for the residents. All I'm hearing is argument about it, saying it's not relevant. Whether you could question if you get into the legalities, we are giving you that information as concerned residents. We would like you to listen to that rather than arguing with us and agree a resolution that is going to work for all parties. That's all I would like to add.
Can I have a reply to it?
No, you can't. I'm sorry. I apologise because we've had your area and we've had Alison. So I think we've done enough deliberation. We've understood we've understood what you've said. I think you've been very clear. The resident association was very clear. I think now I'm going to draw it to a close. We are now going to deliberate. Thank you so much, everyone, for all your comments, and I think we've had a really good session. So we ask you to leave the room. We will be asking you back in, depending on the time frame. Yes, I knew you were going to say what's the time.
20 minutes?
Oh, okay, just to let you know, we will not be, as I did sort of probably gathered, we will not be putting a time limit on it because there is a lot. I do apologise. You can go home. I mean, obviously you can. Well, I'm sure you're not going home, but you can leave the building. It will be live on YouTube when we come back. But I don't want to have. It's a really important matter, and I don't want us to rush in 20 minutes to try and get this in. Oh. There is.
So just an indication is when you're likely to come up with some kind of thing, maybe an hour maybe or something?
I don't think we can actually say, I do apologise. I don't think but you can tune in on, all we'll be doing is obviously giving the answer, which you can tune in on YouTube. So there'll be no discussion. I just give out the notice, what's been put in. So I don't know whether that will help, because then you can go home, you can still see it on YouTube. So you will know by today. Is that okay?
That's brilliant.
Have a safe journey home as well,